That's him. All right, let's hop to it. So the time is 6:03. Let's start with attendance now that it appears everybody's here. So we'll start with Corey. Actually, yeah, Corey.
Corey Evans here.
Great. Francine.
Francine Lyons here.
Great. Susan.
Susan Franklin here.
And Mike.
Mike Dick here.
And Brian Host here. And Ralph.
Ralph Dormitzer are here.
Okay. So we've got everybody here. Let's go ahead and dive right into the agenda for this evening. So first item of business is the capital request lists. We don't necessarily have to go through these in any level of detail, but hopefully everyone received the town request list, which also includes the SCORE request list on it, and it's broken out between the regular capital stabilization fund, the school stabilization fund, and the road and sidewalks fund. I guess one request I had just before we go into any questions, Michelle, if you could please, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got Don Pyatt on retainer. Is that correct?
We do.
Okay. One of the problems we had last year, just trying to figure out how much money we actually had to spend, was getting a clean figure for the debt service that we were to pay last year. And it's more complicated than it sounds, because there are a whole bunch of included debt offerings, only some of which are capital. And our finance director at that time had no real understanding or ability to separate them, and I think we just ended up getting dropped with the entire bill, even though some of it's not capital debt. So if you could just reach out to Don, he had actually built the spreadsheet in a way that it produces the number, and if we could get both the listing of the various debt tranches as well as the breakdown between capital and non-capital, so that we can see how much we have to pay, that would be helpful. And if it ultimately yields this number, so be it, but I'll be somewhat surprised, because the number should be going down and had been going down in the past.
Okay.
So that was the one request I had. I don't know if others have had a chance to receive this and spend a few minutes looking over it. There's obviously a lot of spend here and a lot of items that we're going to need to review.
I have not.
You've not received it, Michael, or not had a chance to review it?
I have not received anything.
Okay, have others received it?
I certainly got the list, Brian. I also took a look at the on the website, where there are a lot of Excel files, but it would be a lot to download to actually see all of them. There are probably 21 of them or 22 of them. I think.
Yeah, no, there's probably more than that, actually. There was a specific list that Michelle circulated for our meeting last week. We just never got to it. Michelle, I don't know if you have access to that email. Did that go out to the group? Does it just need resent, or did the group?
I think it was attached to the meeting invite last week.
That's what it was definitely circulated. I got it. I just don't remember if it went to the entire group or if somehow it just went to me.
No, I think I've got
it. Should have gone to everybody.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Certainly should have gone to everybody, but I'm entirely capable of receiving the document, not forwarding it. I don't think that's what happened, but
it was in that in meeting invite last time. The one thing that I struggle,
so everyone has access to it through that meeting invite. Michelle,
sorry, I don't have it. I don't.
Okay, do you have the meeting invite from last week, Michael?
No, that was deleted last week. So maybe it would help to highlight in the meeting invite that there's something to download.
Mike, I'll forward it to you right now.
So
thank you.
So I just want to make sure I can get all this information to everyone the same way. Can we just decide on a method that works best? Because I know the OneDrive's a little quirky for people, so I'm not putting things there. I put it in the meeting invite. Doesn't sound like that may be the best either. Unfortunately, I can't email all these documents because oftentimes they're too large to send the email out and it won't get to everybody. So maybe we can just talk at the end of the meeting of the best way to get information out to everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're on topic now, so let's not forget. Let's just discuss it now. I mean, I've generally sent emails to tagging both their town emails and their personal emails. So when you look at the emails that I distribute, they usually have 2 emails for every single person on the committee. And I just have found that's, kind of at least my attempt at a foolproof solution. Because that way it goes to both accounts. And yes, the OneDrive I think is quirky for some people. So I don't know how people feel about it. That if there's a better suggestion, I'm all ears, but that was kind of the best I could come up with.
Okay, so I received an email today with the DPW vehicle list. I mean, that worked.
Yeah.
So it was called out as something to pay attention to. Whereas an assumption that you've attached something to a meeting invite, generally what I'm looking for is the agenda so I can open it and join the meeting. I'm not looking for attachments.
Well, okay.
And I'm actually I don't know who uses Outlook, but I use Outlook for town stuff. The problem with a meeting invite with attachments is that Outlook shows you like the first 4, but anything else you have to scroll within a window with no scroll bar. So stuff gets hidden. Personally, I'd prefer, if possible, just a separate email that says, documentation for this meeting. I think we've done that. There was last meeting, there was an email that said documents for this meeting. I find that very helpful. I also have no problem with the OneDrive if that's where we are, but I do find if it's within the invite, it is hard for me to see all of them. So that's my feedback.
Okay,
Well,
that's
so
a good solution.
Yeah, and then also, so the select board, everything is on the website. You do have your own capital budget page. Should we start setting up folders there and you can pull it down? No. You'd rather not do that? Okay.
I think the advantage of that is you can have very large folders. I think it allows us to actually get whatever we want. So I tend to do that. Yeah.
So
Michelle, in the past,
sorry, go ahead.
So I was saying, what I found worked very well for the select board, for most members, was if you share the base level of capital budget, agendas, and within that folder you have the individual dates for the folders, so that you're not kind of sharing a new folder all the time. We all have access to the capital budget folder. Has that been a problem in the past, Michelle? Because that would solve that's easier for you to post to, and it's also big file agnostic.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to post to, but that's through the OneDrive that we do that. And I think that's where we're getting hung up, that some people can't access the OneDrive. Because I know it's challenging if you have more than one Outlook account. It's
I struggle with that too. Yeah.
To navigate it. It's I don't know. Let's think about it. For now, if I have to send a couple different emails to make sure you get all the information, I'll just highlight it until we can come up with a better solution, just to make sure everyone's getting the same level of information.
Yeah, I in response to Michael's observation, I think Corey's suggestion hits it on the spot. I could see how, a meeting invite, you could miss an attachment. So maybe just break it into 2 separate emails. You have an invitation, and then separately an email that says, meeting materials for meeting, so that it's loud and clear that there's something attached to it.
It's easily saved.
That too.
Okay.
The peculiarity of Outlook with the multiple attachments, as maybe Corey has seen, and I certainly see, is you have to look through and see the ones that actually have information. A lot of them are just images, as you probably know. So you might get 6 of them. I think we did actually in this case get 6 of them, only one of which
one of them has anything in it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mess.
Might it be worth, trying the OneDrive again and we can just kind of go through it step by step, gently. Michelle, if there is a folder you can share, and then in the interim, we can also email out the attachments. That way, maybe all of us as a group can slowly get more comfortable or figure out what the hiccups are. Because I think if it's, what's nice about the OneDrive, if there's an updated file, you don't have to send an email and say, oh, there's an updated file. It's always the most updated file. So, and we're also not getting 5 emails because there's more stuff. So there's only one place to track. Because even in this instance, even last week we had a few emails with different stuff, and I was sorting through emails trying to get everything together. So it's all in one folder. It's a lot easier for us to all find. So I think that should be the goal, to migrate there. So could you set up the OneDrive folder and then from there, we'll distribute via email to the members that need it as well? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yep. Not a problem.
Mike, you've had issues with OneDrive?
I've had issues with Microsoft 365 coming from cohassetma.gov. It interferes with my profile. It overrides my profile. So
Right,
if I'm trying to do something
365
personally,
accounts. Yeah.
I have to go through a number of steps to try and disconnect the town OneDrive so that I can use my own. And so
What
I sat
browser
with
do you
Ron
use?
Menard. I'm sorry?
What web browser do you use to access the OneDrive? Do you do it on the
Generally,
web
I
or
use
do you do
Edge.
it? Okay, so I don't use Edge very much, but like all the other browsers have like profiles you can have. So that's what I have is I've got a separate profile for Cohasset. So when I launch into that profile, it says like on the top, you're in the Cohasset profile, it automatically signs me in Office 365 for Cohasset. It doesn't mess up my work one or the other one I have for the university. So it's like I've got three. I can walk you through that if you want to try one.
Two
Absolutely.
profiles. There are two separate accounts, each one with its own profile.
Right. So in Edge, you or I know Chrome does it, Firefox does it, Safari does it. I'm not sure with
Edge
so
is the Microsoft browser.
No, but sometimes within Edge, you may have. I'll look it up, and I'll see if I can find some stuff. Within Edge, you can create separate Edge profiles, which have their own set of cookies and sign-ins and logins. That way, there's none of that crisscross, because the crisscross is a nightmare. So I'm pretty sure Edge has that. But I'll look it up and we can work together offline about it if you want. If you're willing to, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, of course, if it works seamlessly, great. But if 90% of the work that I'm doing is on my own account with my own tools, then it doesn't work using the town profile.
Like, do you use Outlook?
Only for the town emails.
Okay, what I did is I set up my Outlook, so I have a OneDrive for the Outlook for Cohasset MA and OneDrive for personal, and that just it works seamlessly to take me where I need to go. So
I've had problems with Outlook overriding my address book when I've tried to do that.
Oh.
So if I try to send an email, more often than not, it's pulling up my town or the town address book. That's one of the major difficulties for me.
Mine is all separated out, so I can pick up anyone I want. Huh.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out, Mike. I think we can do it.
Thank you.
Okay. And so hopefully the goal is ultimately to get this over to OneDrive, but in the interim, it sounds like we still need to do old school and just simply attach attachments to emails, hopefully ignore all the redundant logo files, Ralph. And at least that way people have copies of this. Now, the one other suggestion was to put it up on the website. I haven't really paid much attention to that idea in the past, but sounds like we're doing that now, Michelle, for select board. You just if it's a topic that's on that agenda, it just goes right up on the website.
Yep.
Okay, and are those attachments sort of grouped by meeting date?
They're grouped by meeting date.
Seems pretty foolproof, right? That way the public can see it, we can see it. We don't have to. No one even has to log into anything to do that. How do people feel about
getting stuff? Well, it's clunky to kind of update just knowing what I know about the back end of the website. It's not a very smooth experience, and it doesn't update. So I think it puts it's a lot of extra work for Michelle to kind of be going there. It'd be easier for her just to email it, frankly. I do agree that the public accessibility is great, but it's sometimes a lot of the times these documents are works in progress. Right. So they're really not even like if the public were to look at them, it wouldn't really help them make a decision. So
it's a good observation. People could look at a document from a given date that very much was still evolving and arrive at the wrong conclusions. Okay, so it sounds like we're leaning back on email for now with the hope of getting to OneDrive. Is that where we are?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's what we'll do for future meetings.
Okay, and Michelle, you can look to the emails that I send out. I always make sure that I copy both, people's preferred and their town emails. That way, no matter what their habits are, they get a copy.
Yeah, so I've been trying to do that. The only one
Okay.
I don't have 2 emails for is Corey. Which I'm sure
Don't
he
you
can
dare
provide
double
one.
email me. No.
There you go.
A line I will not cross.
I think what Corey's saying is that he's more diligent than the rest of us logging into their town emails. I think that's the hidden message there. And I'm sure it's true. At least in my case. All right. Michelle, can I just ask you to pull up on screen the request list? I want to spend a couple of minutes on the biggest numbers on here, not the individual requests, but just I want to make sure that everyone sort of sees the issue.
God, I'm just trying to find the right document.
Sorry.
I have it handy, Michelle, if you want me to. Nice.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm just focusing in on first of all the capital stabilization fund column, and if you could just scroll down, Michelle, we've got this total of 2,143,000, right? So that's the total request before we get to the priority twos that have already been sort of deprioritized. Is that accurate, Michelle? It's in line 43, so it's C44. Actually, you get the 2143.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's where the requests are right now. And then the fund balance the transfer in is going to be in C56. That's the 1996. I guess my understanding was there was going to be an escalator on that. Is that just not factored in, or is that not something that's happening?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm not entirely sure about that.
Okay, so that's question 2. Okay, because that's what got us in a pickle in the first place, was this being flat funded for the past 15 years. And then the debt number on C57, if you could reach out to Don or put Don in touch with me. We've had this conversation before in the past, before we switched finance directors, but we just need to unbundle that and get to the right number. And then so the 1996 minus the 505, at least based on this, leaves us with a little less than 1.5 to spend. And I think that next line, C59, is the shortfall. Is that right? So the requests exceed the funding amount by 652,000.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And the stabilization fund balance on line 61. So 61, that's the balance coming into this year before the transfers in and any requests that are appropriated. Is that?
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that?
So C61 in the amount of 1,428,000. I believe that's the stabilization fund balance prior to, any fiscal 25 appropriations in or appropriations out. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So we basically had like a little less than $1 million. We had 928,000, and then we picked up 500 in free cash at STM.
Yes. Yes.
Wasn't explicitly for town hall, but it certainly referenced town hall as one of the likely uses for that 500,000. Okay, so we if we I guess we have in the past targeted at maintaining a fund balance of $1 million. So there is another 4.25 in that stabilization fund to help offset this 652. But I guess there has to be a discussion about whether that people feel strongly that has to go specifically towards town hall, or simply these other items. So those would be the the highlight issues I saw there. I just want to flag this stuff so we're all on the same page as we come into this appropriation cycle. Is there anything else people sort of see jumping out here that we should just highlight to people, at least on
Brian, on
the C column?
Well, on the level funding thing, I mean, if we talked about kind of strictly following the 2.5 rule as a minimum, so that puts us at 2045900. And
Yeah.
Michelle, can you run that up the chain in the budget to just confirm that 2045900 is what the capital budget is going to appropriate? And if we have to go in front of advisory or select board to describe why, we're happy to. But that's, it's 50 grand, but that's going to add up if we don't start doing it
Yeah.
now. We want to get in the habit of doing it. So
50 grand
Is
this
that
year, it's
appropriate,
100
Michelle?
the year after.
exactly, yeah. So we should be at 2045900.
Okay,
And that's
that make
definitely
sense?
been socialized. I thought it had been agreed. I think it just needs to find its way into this spreadsheet. So the next column over is anything else in column C jumping out at people, or questions, comments? Okay. And then column D is the school stabilization fund. It looks like there's 2.2 million worth of requests. And I guess there's 3 million of funding in that fund, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Michelle? Because we've got,
that's correct. So it was 1.5
yeah,
in arrears almost, and then 1.5 this year. So
1.5
3
for
million
fiscal
total.
24 and another 1.5 in fiscal 25, but they're requested
Correct.
2.2 against it already. Just in terms of the prioritized, and what I don't see on here is a roof.
So the piece of the roof that is on here, actually I didn't put it on here, but what they want to do is they want to set aside $200,000 from this towards the roof. So it's not on here because it's just kind of, they're saving that money.
But they applied
put towards-
MSBA accelerated repair,
Yep.
right? Do we have any sense
did.
of what percentage that would cover? Is it the same as like the full programs where we're looking at like
Yeah.
20% of the coverage, whatever it is?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
A little higher.
So,
I think we're looking more at like a 32%, even upwards of 40%.
okay.
But something,
do we have-
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Michelle. No, I was just going to ask, and what's the total cost, the total estimate at this moment for the roofs?
I believe Nick's on, I think if I'm not mistaken, anywhere between $3 to $4 million. For the
Okay, so
Osgood
200 is
roof.
not going to get us any. Okay, all right.
It doesn't do anything. Your point's spot on.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's virtue signaling and financial suicide.
I just want to be sure we have enough money in it. If we get accepted, we can execute, right? That's kind of where my mind is. Michelle, does that make sense? Or is it one of those things where if MSBA lets us in, we can scramble and figure it out later? I mean, what's the best practice here?
No, so you don't want to scramble and figure it out later, because what has happened to a couple of communities is because they didn't have that funding for the design of the roof, they were released
Okay.
from the program. So we want to make sure we do have some money set aside to at least get us to that design phase.
And what does 200 do in the context of that discussion?
I think 200 gets you pretty close to your design phase. And then the other phase would happen next year when you could allocate additional funding. So,
But even
Okay,
if
thank
you allocated 100% of next year at 1.5, that's not going to get you 60% of the cost of the roof.
and you don't have to pay 60% of the cost of the roof. It's about a 2.5, 3 year process
Really?
from start to finish. Yep. If you look at all the other awarded projects,
For a roof?
it takes some time.
What-
Yep.
Okay.
So it takes them, so the SOI had to have been sent in, I forget the date now, but it was the first week in March. I think it was March 1st, actually.
Okay.
So they won't even know if they got accepted into the accelerated program probably till September, based on the calendar.
Okay.
And then if they get accepted into the program in September, then the MSBA then goes out to hire a designer. So you're talking almost spring of next year before anything happens, based on their current calendar.
Okay. Spring of next
Nick-
year, we would be actually paying for the design work with the 200,000, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's fiscal 25. That's the 200,000 that people are thinking about.
Yes.
Really, earmarking for that design. I mean, it should probably just be an appropriation on here, an appropriation request. Okay.
Where are you guys on the spreadsheet?
Well, we're talking hypothetically about column D.
I'm not following the discussion at all.
Yeah, well, we're talking about column D and the fact that there's $2.2 million worth of requests out of $3 million worth of funding available, and there's nothing on there for the roof, right? Which is a $3 to $4 million roof, which was the whole point of, the major capital items were the whole point of the stabilization fund to begin with, starting with the roofs, which is the single most important asset that we have on any of these buildings. So we're just trying to understand, how that's going to play out. So Michelle's articulated that they're thinking about $200,000 for the design phase, which would happen in fiscal 25. But let's say we appropriate the 200,000 and we spend it in this next spring, right? All within fiscal 25. Then when would we actually spend for the roof? It would be fiscal 26. It would literally be next fiscal cycle, would it not?
I'm going to say
I would
yes.
think we'd have to. I would think we'd have to cough up our 60% and in fiscal 26. And if we spend all this, 1.5 isn't going to. The next 1.5 transfer is not going to, or funding is not going to cover it.
So what we need here is either a 1, 2, or 3 year plan attached to this particular year's document to answer all your questions, Brian.
Basically to show that
I'm not finished speaking.
Okay.
What you're doing is you're aware of this situation, and I appreciate that, as is Michelle. But speaking for myself, I'm not following you at all. But now I'm sort of getting that you're questioning the 2.2 million total, and maybe that's what your question should be: is Michelle, can you provide us additional information for a 1, 2, or 3 year projection that shows us what your total spend will be out of the school stabilization budget for each year, so that we on capital budget can assure ourselves that the school roofs, or perhaps there are other high priority items that are not on this list yet, do show up. Because right now you're talking about something behind a wall, a door, which anybody on this call is unable to see or perceive.
So
now I'm done.
Mike, can I just, both reply and on. So when I first saw this list, all the discussions we had last year about the priorities for the schools was about how the roofs were this big, huge thing. So I was myself surprised when we saw this list that the roofs weren't there, and things that we hadn't talked about, like the roads and sidewalks being $1 million, were there. And I, always had some concern that when we've got such a big amount of money, it lends itself to people kind of filling in a lot of stuff. And I'm personally worried that, we heard all about the roofs, we know how much they're going to cost, and I'm worried that we're not, I don't know any more than you do, but I'm worried that I'm worried about the potential that we're not making enough forward progress on those things. So I think your suggestion on at least the roof part is great. I mean, if I had some understanding of, okay, we think it's going to be $3 million and we think it's going to have 60%, and we've got 3 fiscal years, boom, 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 that I can say, great, we're going to carve this out, we're going to carve this out, we're going to carve this out. We can map it out and kind of get to exactly where you're saying. That would make me a lot more comfortable with how much money we're spending in this fiscal cycle. Does that kind of make all sense?
It makes sense, and I would apply the same logic to the column C. What else is not being presented? And I'll pick on town hall space lease and one-time cost for One Pleasant. What in the 1, 2, or 3 year forecast will be presented for any additional town hall space leased, or cost for One Pleasant, or anything else related to town hall? All big numbers.
Right.
Elder affairs, 525 for an HVAC system. What else might be needed over there? So in a way, I'm not feeling thoroughly briefed or thoroughly aware of what's down the road that would change any decisions I would make or want to make on this year.
So Mike, I think maybe I can help answer, well, not answer these some of the questions, but at least make a recommendation. So I believe tonight, I think we have on the agenda liaison assignments, maybe.
Yep.
And I think it would be great to have the liaison reach out to the schools, and find out what their plan is.
Mhm.
Because here I don't want to speak for the schools. So I'm just speaking, this is a snapshot in time, of their request for this year. And if they have a bigger, broader plan, I think it would be great for the liaison to understand that and be able to report back to the committee. And as far as all the other items, the same would apply. So this is just a snapshot for this year. And all the departments do have a 10-year plan. And I think it would be great if the liaison would dive into that and be able to report back. And that may answer a lot of the questions. I don't know if that's.
That's
It
kind of-
does.
That's kind of the piece
Okay.
that's missing that I think we got used to getting the 10-year plan by department, and then it sunk up to one giant plan. And then this document is more of a breakdown of the items that make up the numbers in the bigger plan. So we're seeing the detail before we see the big picture on this one, I think. You know what I'm talking about, Michelle? We used to always get it at the beginning of every year. We get a 10-year plan.
I
Yeah.
do.
So given what's in front of me and given what I've heard verbally, I don't feel like I'm ready to make any decisions here without knowing whether there are bigger expenditures that will become key, important, high priority in the next 12, 24 months. I don't want to spend money if we need it for something that's coming.
Can I,
So if there's a way to give us a very clear picture of the demand on the money that we have on hand and the money that will be needed next year, the year after, I think we'll have a much better set of data to make good decisions upon.
so I think we're all in violent agreement. The list in front of us today is really a snapshot to allow us to start to home in on the issues. It was, I don't think, at least not my intention, to look at this as something that was going to inform us to a level of making decisions. It was going to inform us to a level of identifying the things that we need to do to get to that place, Michael. So I think we're viewing this the same way. With regard to the school roofs, I want to be completely clear. It's not on it's not on here, okay? And I don't have any information that you don't have other than the knowledge of the discussion that led to, this stabilization fund in the first place, which is that we've got, 3 school roofs coming at us. And the first one is Osgood. And I am literally working through the math real time. I'm not sitting here with something that you don't have. I'm looking at this. There's nothing on it for the Osgood school roof. I know it's a multi-million-dollar project. Michelle's informed us that the first step is in fiscal 25 for 200,000. But if we spend 2.2 million in fiscal 25 plus another 200,000 on the design for that roof, we're only going to get another 1.5 in fiscal 26. That's not going to cover the 60% match on the roof, assuming we even get 40% from the state in the first place. So I'm literally just doing this math in my head, and I can see right now that, we are not planning to provide funding certainty in fiscal 26 for this roof. We're going to need to take this up with the school to make sure that what they spend this year leaves enough capacity to fund this roof in fiscal 26, assuming whatever it is people want to assume. It's got to be reasonable, but we're only getting another 1.5 in fiscal 26, so we can't spend all of this right now. And we'll work with them to figure out what the priorities are. I'm sorry, go ahead. That was just the point, is to flag the fact that we have an issue. I don't have the solution.
The
Or
1.5 you're
anything.
referencing, is that in the school stabilization budget or the capital budget stabilization
No,
budget?
anything that has to do with the building itself or the grounds or the parking lots up at the schools comes out of the school stabilization fund.
So that's the 150 you're referring to is the school stabilization fund.
1.5 million.
Yes. Okay. I'm clear on that now. Thank you.
Yes, it's 1.5 per year. So right now there's $3 million, available because there was 1.5 in fiscal 24 and there's 1.5 in fiscal 25, of which of that three, there's requests here for 2.2 of it, plus another 200 for the design on the roof. So they're up to 2.4. That'll leave a 600 balance. Fiscal 20 so fiscal 26, they'll get a new 1.5 on top of the 600. It'll be a 2.1. That's not going to cover 60% of a $4 million roof. And that's assuming they don't spend anything on anything else that year.
I think you also, so reflecting on this whole 10-year plan, you also have Deer Hill School, you also have the high school.
Yep.
You have windows in the Osgood School, and as we really need to know what the whole picture looks like over the next 5 years anyway.
Yeah,
Because
that's my point about wanting the 10-year plan, because both those roofs are on the 10-year plan, but they're under facilities, they're not under schools. So now they're going to be moved to schools, but the 10-year plan format was much easier to look at.
To see when the stuff was coming in and prepare for it. Yeah.
So, Susan, is there a 10-year plan for the schools in the OneDrive?
I'm looking at the one that's consolidated, this was last year's plan, but it was all the different departments and then consolidated into capital request by department by year.
I think the schools did their own 10-year plan. If that's not in the OneDrive, I'll email it and send it out to everybody. It still doesn't address the questions
I'm looking at, a prior year because we don't have one for this year.
Right, there isn't one in the schools OneDrive.
This is Francine. I think I did find one for the schools, a 10-year plan it was from last year though, to your point.
Yeah, I don't see one under FY 2025. I see one under the prior year.
Yep.
They do have one available. I'll upload it and email it to everybody so you'll see the bigger picture.
That would be really helpful. Thank you, Michelle. And are the other tabs in the 10-year plan being updated, or have they been updated?
There are some tabs that have been updated. Actually, most have been updated. Yes, I'll share the whole 10-year plan with you.
Okay, that would be great. So it
It's
sounds
just,
like
as you know, it's just a moving target. but-
totally understood,
Yeah,
but
that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
it gives us some at least directional instinct as to whether we're spending too much or not enough.
Sure.
We can
Usually
provide
the
guidance.
former. In fact, always the former, but
I do. I don't. If we're not done with that conversation, we can continue. I do have one at the top of this question about some of these line items, just out of curiosity. If I don't know where we are on the discussion, but
sounds like this is a good time, Corey.
okay, cool. Michelle, could you scroll the way up, please? So let's start with line 5, the level 3 charging stations. Is that previously we got a whole lot of outside funding for that? Is that expected for this? Is this for a piece of equipment we're buying? What's the and then of course we talked, we went through the whole funding thing about the level 2 ones. So walk me through that whole thing if you could.
Sure. So
Briefly.
level 3, actually, Nick can probably speak to this better than I can, but the level 3 charging stations, there's a significant
Actually,
rebate
Michelle,
back from
isn't this in the DPW request that we're going to cover with Nick at the end of this meeting?
level 3 is in Nick's, yes.
Okay,
Then we'll
let's
put it on
do it
hold.
then.
Thanks, Brian.
Let's do it then. And I'd
Okay.
rather not get into, any of the individual requests right now, unless there's something really flagrant here. Because they will get covered by the departments.
I would just like to highlight one thing, Brian, that's in this request, which is the one-time cost for Pleasant Street. As you know, that's a moving target. In the ARPA reserve fund and the other capital ask, I believe that that's going to change depending on what happens with the select board meeting. But I just want to note that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason
Michelle?
town hall's not on the agenda tonight, because it's just
Yeah.
moving around so much. I don't even know what we should talk about. So I
Right.
wanted to settle down a little bit before we.
Yeah,
start
I just
doing
wanted to
that.
highlight that is going to be a
And
change.
at the time we met last week, we were still in the mindset that this was a lease. So it's just all completely changed. And
Mhm.
when it settles down, we'll pick it up. In the meantime, we got to forge forward with the departments. Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else on this? Any other observations on this request list before we move on?
Are we going to get a presentation on HVAC for Elder Affairs, Michelle, or is this kind of it? My only question is, go ahead.
Yep, so Nick is prepared to talk about it with the information that he has available. So yes,
Great.
he will highlight that.
Okay. Then Nick's on the agenda for later this evening. All right, so let's move forward with Elder Affairs.
Okay, I'm going to promote. I'm going to stop sharing. So on to talk about Elder Affairs is Bob Sylvia. We have Paul Kearse and we have Rich Hines, all available to speak to this. And they're all coming in right now.
All right. Looks like we've got everybody. Chief Sylvia, you just couldn't stay away.
Well, I got in the middle of this partly because of a little bit of expertise in the fact that I've been now driving these vehicles for almost 10 months. So,
All right. Good stuff. So who's going to lead the presentation today?
Yeah, so it really did come down to that. So what we're doing is we're trying to restructure the vehicles that Elder Affairs is using.
Okay.
As you're fully aware, we have two Transit 2019 Transit 150 passenger vans. They are 6 or 7 passengers. The problem with the vans is that they have a low roof, which very simply means that they have about 4 foot, believe it's 4'5" clearance to get in and out of them. So for the people that we are transporting, they are our seniors and people that are not as agile and mobile as they might have been at one time. It is very difficult to use. So therefore, the vans are not being used very often. All the use is being done with the big wheelchair van, which from a department standpoint, I tell you, gets 6 to 7 miles to the gallon. So it's kind of, how can we restructure what we presently have? And is there any value to what we presently have, being the 2019 vans? Let me just speak to the value very, very quickly. And that is, we put one of the 2019 vans, the one that has 10,000, almost 300 miles on it. We put it out for a bid, and Michelle did all of that work. And Michelle came back and we received a bid for $32,000 for that vehicle. So we said, well, let's look at the other one, which we're reluctant to try and sell at the present time because we need something to back up the other vehicles if something breaks down. Part of the reason that there are the number of vehicles that there are.
So Chief, do I still call you Chief or do I call you Bob? What do you prefer?
Call me Bob, you can call me whatever works, Brian.
You're always going to be Chief to me. Did we sell the one van, the 10? That we received
That's
the
a
bid on?
Michelle question. Michelle did receive
Yeah.
a successful bid. I don't know what the process is from there.
Yep, so I'll just speak to that quickly. So we did receive the bid for $32,000. It just so happens it's at a dealership where we can actually purchase one of the vehicles that we're requesting through capital budget.
Yep.
So if approved, we would like to trade the vehicle in and offset the cost of the other vehicle.
Okay.
I do want to highlight that in 2019, we only paid $27,681 for the transit van. And
Okay.
we're getting $32,000 for it now. So
Is that because we bought it through like state pricing or
we got it through state pricing then, and then now the way the car market has worked out for us, and the availability of vans of this nature, Bob was able to speak to several people and get them interested in the van. Therefore, they bid, and they bid high.
Okay. And
And along that line, Brian, I did a little research this afternoon on the one that we have left that eventually we'll be doing something with.
Yep.
And I'm staring at a bid offer at $40,400 for the second van that has 5,200 miles on it. Almost seems too good to be true, but considering we were able to sell the other one, we had a bid offer this was through CarMax up in Norwood. We had a bid offer from them at 31, and we had another bidder come in at 32. So I think there is some validity to the fact that these vans are worth something, and it has something. I think the biggest piece there are no decent vans in the used market because of what happened during 20 and 21.
Yeah. These are immediately pre-COVID and they're low mileage. Okay, and let me just ask, we made a decision to part with these vans. Do these actually have the extended height roofs, or was that just an oversight on our part? Because I see these vans all over the place with, popped up roof lines specifically to provide more height. I mean, are these the higher roof lines, or did we just not buy the higher roof lines?
So I can address that. Rich Hines is on, who's now the chairman of Elder Affairs, and I'm Paul Kears, 39 Old Coach Road, board member and former chair. I was the one who worked with Coral, who was the director at the time. We originally were seeking a minivan style product, and were unable to get those at the time. They opted for this particular van because of the seating capacity. And when we went to the facility down in Attleboro, they said they could retrofit this out for ADA compliant and it would be fine for us. So that's the only vehicles that were available to us at the time for the price. The larger ones that we're looking at now, back then were extremely expensive for two. There were, $89,000-$90,000 for that kind of build out on that van. So that's why we opted for the regular 150s. With Bob coming on board, and since COVID, we've been able to really reflect on what the true need is, moving forward, not just today, but what we see with our aging community, where there's a lot more people aging in place. There's a lot more hip and knee replacements going on. So mobility is the issue, and how to get people around. Where the town had decided to take ownership of the electric vehicles, we have one of those, so that really helped offload some of the van transportation. We have a lot of folks that do not want to get in the van at all, because they have to climb up into it. And once you get into it, it's fine. It's not like our constituents are 6'4", but once you get into it, you got to kind of stand up and turn yourself around to get seated. And that's where the headroom issue comes into play. And a lot of people have, walkers or canes or some assisted mobility device. So when we came to you almost 2 years ago now to secure the deposit for the van that we put in the grant for, we won the grant. The grant was postponed for a year. You had $66,000 set aside for the deposit of that, because at that time we thought it might be a 20% deposit. It ended up to be closer to 30, I think. So that finally came through. That van, I believe, is going to be delivered, within the next month or so. Then it has to go out to have some retrofit done and the name on it and all that stuff. So there's still a little little ways to go on it. So when we took that van from the state, we're going to disposition the existing wheelchair van that we have, the 2009. So whatever cash comes from that goes back into the general fund. I'm not going to guess we're going to get more than $5,000 for that thing, but what was returned back to capital budget though was the difference between the 66,000 and what we used. So I think you got back something like $30,000.
Okay.
Right. So now what Bob has identified was a Ford F-350, which has the extra headroom, has the extra space, and we're going to put in a remedial wheelchair lift in there. This is a different type of lift that comes with the larger bus. So this 350 now will have that extra capacity for wheelchair lift because what we want to do is have some sort of contingency plan for the vehicles being dispersed. And if some vehicles in the shop or in repair, we will still have that ability to move people around. With the 350, you can get in and out of it easier. You'll have that headroom. We'll have that extra space for mobility pieces. So that one comes in around, I think, just for the sake of argument, 80,000. You know, so you're less the 30 that we gave you back. So that's why it's listed as 50 on your sheet. Now, we also identified the minivan, which is what we originally wanted. And I think I remember there was a few folks on your board that wanted us to investigate Toyota had signed a contract with New York City on electric minivans for cabs, and that's what we were trying to get, but they weren't available outside of those contracts. So now we have identified a minivan, which absolutely suits the need for a majority of our rides. And so that one came in at about 47, I think, is what 42 is what's on your list, right?
Paul, I don't mean to interrupt, but can I jump in real quick? I gave Michelle, just so we can get some background, you can understand exactly where we are and what we're looking for. I've got a couple of PowerPoint slides. I promise you this will not be death by PowerPoint. But if Michelle, if you could punch those up, there's just a couple of slides, and basically they will show you where we presently stand with vehicles and what we're proposing for vehicles and what their purposes might be. So, you know, then Michelle's also got all the breakdown on, you know, costs associated. So if you could do that, Michelle, and just punch that up real quick, that would be incredibly helpful. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what we presently have for vehicles at Elder Affairs. It shows the two 2019 Ford Transit XLTs with low roofs. So when Ford talks about this, there's a low roof, a medium roof, and then a high roof. So these are low roofs. As you can see, they have passenger headroom once you're inside of 4 foot 4 inches. So for our seniors, it's difficult for them to get in and out, or as one of them likes to say to me, what do you want me to do? Crawl in and out of this vehicle? So they're not, part of the reason that they don't have the mileage that you would think is because they're not that usable. The third vehicle is the wheelchair van that Paul was just talking about that is being replaced via the grant. And as you can see, that is 6 foot 4 inch headroom. So that's the one that gets the vast majority of the use. And then the last piece is that electric sedan, which is used for medical rides, usually one-on-one, and spends a lot of time out of town. So this is the vehicles that we're proposing. One is the new minivan. And again, we're looking at a Honda Odyssey or a Toyota Sienna. They both have left and right side sliding doors, so you can get access to them. They're 6-passenger vehicles. The back seat might be a little difficult for some of our seniors, so we'll have to figure that all out. The second vehicle is the new van that we were talking about, the Transit 350, which has a high roof. The high roof, again, 6 foot 4, just like the wheelchair van, and it would be easier to access in and out. Again, the new wheelchair van, hopefully, it was supposed to be delivered this week. unfortunately, it got pushed back because they're waiting for a part from Motorola. You go to the next one real quick, Michelle. So this is one thing I wanted to mention also. Obviously, the amount of use that the big van is getting, it gets 6 to 7 miles to the gallon. Hopefully a new one will be slightly better, but that's the number we're working off of right now. The new high roof would be at 14, and when we could use the minivan, as you can see, the combined is closer to 22. So savings in gas, not a bad thing. So just to give you a perspective of what these look like, the next photo, this is a Transit 150. As you can see, the roof is pretty low. Go to the next slide, Michelle. This is what it looks like on the interior. And as you can see, once you step up onto the 2 steps and up into the vehicle, there is not a lot of headroom. It's difficult to access. The next one is what a 350 high roof van looks like. And this is exactly what you were talking about, Brian. This is the big high roof. So gas mileage between a 150 and a 350 is slightly different, obviously, because of the amount of air that it's pushing through, but I don't think it's that big a deal. So this is the interior of that proposed roof, high roof van. And as Paul mentioned, it will seat those on the top. You see 2 seats or 3 seats that are folded up. Those are double seats. So that would fit 6, but they fold up so you can get wheelchairs in and out. The 2 seats on the lower section, those 2 are fixed. So technically you have a 9-passenger van. And as Paul also mentioned, that is a wheelchair lift out the back door, so that we have the ability to cross over between what you're now looking at, which is the Phoenix ML quality van that's supposed to be quality coach, that's supposed to be delivered shortly. But these, again, you know, to use this as the primary vehicle is kind of a little bit tough due to what it burns for gas and what we have to do with it. So, and we don't have any, at the present time, we don't have any crossover between vehicles. And, you know, my old life, a lot of the stuff we did was dual function. So the minivan could cover for the medical van rides or the medical rides. This, you know, the high roof van could cover for the wheelchair van. Whenever something isn't working, we don't go out of business. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of exactly where we are and what we're hoping to go.
Chief, 2 things, if you would, on the minivan side. Since I am right now prime minivan phase of my life, spent a lot of time minivan shopping. I mean, so 2 things on the Sienna. One, they're available in hybrid, which for what it's doing sounds great. And you're looking at 35 miles per gallon, not 25. And the Siennas are also available in all-wheel drive. I don't know if that's valuable to us, but it seems like, you know, with it might be something. And then I think about this as well, based on the conversation we just had about the great resale. Siennas all-wheel drive hold their value incredibly well. So as if you look at it as an asset, it may cost us another $1,000 up front, but it's probably worthwhile because we'll get more than that on the back end. So that's just minivan life input, unsolicited.
Thank you, Corey. We haven't discounted the idea of the Sienna either. It was just when the bid came in from the Honda dealer for the big number on the trade-in, and wasn't even a trade-in at that time, it was just a sale.
Gotcha.
And then he quoted a number at 42 for a new vehicle. So we looked at it from a standpoint of, by trading in and purchasing through them, we could buy this minivan for $10,000.
Cool.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at the restructuring of it, Brian, it looks like it's a net expense to capital budget of only $30,000 for 2 vehicles. So basically the F-350 comes in, we return $30,000 to you already. We're selling 2 Ford Transits for the low end is 30 apiece, right? So we net 90,000 in cash back, and we're going to expense 120, so there's the $30,000 difference. But if we can get 40, then you're only spending 20.
Okay, I'm just trying to work through this. So, Michelle, do we know if the 30K has come back? I mean, and for the rest of the committee, the 30K is basically, we fronted the full cost of the van, and then, you know, we received a grant in return.
So it hasn't been returned back to capital yet, but it's not being spent. Elder Affairs has specifically said that goes back to capital budget, so it will come back to you.
Okay. So there's an additional 30 of funding here, and then you've got 30 for each of the two vans, so it's basically 90,000. Is that where you were, Paul? This
You're right, yeah. Just using average numbers, yeah. I mean, if Bob can get 40 for one of them, that's great. But I'm just saying, lowball, it's 30 apiece.
90 plus. Let's put it
Yep.
that way. This is gonna be 90 plus that you're gonna have to put against the minivan plus the new
Yeah, so you've got 50 and
the
50 and
XLT.
42 on there, right? So you got 92 on there.
So I've got 50K for the transport vehicle right now on the spreadsheet. What's the real number? Because that seems to be net somehow.
It's 70, I think.
It's-
75.
So
Yeah, that's what the build up.
What it is the build out, including the wheelchair lift is about 25.
Yeah.
So the whole vehicle will be 70 to 75, and then the minivan should come in the low 40s.
Yeah, so you're looking at 115 for two vehicles, less the 90 we just talked about. So the delta's down to 25.
Okay, so the capital request specifically is 25 net. Is that where we are?
Yeah, I would say 30 to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Michelle does have quotes from both, when we talk about the Transit 350, that is via the state bid list. So that's a set number.
Yeah.
So when they sent us the number, they weren't sure what the price increase for 2024 was going to be. So they threw in a big price increase. Hopefully it won't be quite that much. So maybe the van is less. And the build out is through a company down in Norton, I believe, Quality Van Sales, and they came in with a number at about 25 for the build out. So that's how we came up with that number for the Transit 350, Brian.
Okay. Of 75 total for the Transit 350. Okay. And then the minivans in the 40s. Okay. So it's called a 30K net request, roughly speaking. Okay. We're just gonna have to adjust this on the spreadsheet so that, you know, it actually shows the real numbers that we need to request, and we can flag it with notes.
Yeah, I never see any credits on your spreadsheets. It's mostly debits.
Yeah.
I think we're the only department that gives you money back, by the way.
It's
You haven't given it
pretty
back.
rare, and you're the most recent case. There's no question. Usually, if we have to chase it. Any questions, thoughts on this?
Yes,
Other committee members?
yes, I have one.
Please.
I'm a little, I caught a little flag when, Bob, you said that with the minivan, the rear seat may not be accessible, but we'll work it out. I'm a little puzzled why we got into such deep sneakers with the other two, and I think we've got a happy ending, so I really can't complain. But I just want to make sure that we're choosing the right vehicles for the use. The other thought, and I'm not looking for an answer, I just want to make those comments. The other thought is further down the list here, I see there's a need for vans for the athletic department. So given that you've got a really great deal where we get, it sounded to me, and without having anything printed in front of me, I'm going off memory. It sounds like for $30,000, we're getting two vehicles plus a minivan.
No, that includes the minivan, Mike.
So three vehicles for
No,
30,000.
two for the 30. The Transit, we're not going to replace both of the big vans. We're going to replace the two 150 Transit vans with one 350 Transit van, the high roof. And then we're
Okay.
also going to go with a minivan. And we, the folks at Elder Affair, we also have some concerns about making sure that the access to the back of the vehicle is what it's supposed to be. And one of the reasons we looked at the Honda is they have a, in quote, marketing thing, a magic seat, which means that the seats that are outboard on each side slide to the middle so that there is access to get into the back third row seat. So we're hoping that that will allow us to use it the way we want. But also one of the things we're looking at is trying to tailor our rides to the people that we have for clients. So we know certain clients that are in their 90s that have to ride in the big wheelchair van because that's really the only vehicle they can get in and out of. We also have clients in their 60s that would have no problem at all riding in others. So, you know, we have some flexibility that we presently don't have once we go to this new configuration. And, you know, you mentioned the 10-year plan. We believe that this will serve the needs of the town of Cohasset for at least 10 years, if not more.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. On the point, and I don't know, Paul, if you can answer this or whomever, on the point of a need by the athletic department at the high school for athletic vans, has that been considered at all, or is the financial formulas not working in our favor?
Well, from a budgeting perspective, you can credit Elder Affairs 40,000 and debit the school system 40,000. That would work, and you could keep the van in the town. We had originally worked with the school about these two vans when we were purchasing them to try and do something together. The school had so many rules and regulations on transportation of students, aside from putting, you know, stay back 300 yards. It was very cumbersome because it wasn't just the transportation for students after hours, but it was also for students who had a broken leg and couldn't get on the regular bus. You know, some temporary mobility issues. So we researched that. We really wanted to work hard to do that with them. In fact, we offered to manage the transportation needs of those who had temporary disability issues and not able to ride a bus. So we have a software that manages our transportation needs very well, so we could help them out with that. But when all of the rules of the school and state requirements on a vehicle were brought in, it was hard. You know, I know Ted at Rec always wanted a van to haul stuff from field to field. So we thought about that as well for him over there. Certainly, like I said, it's a debit and credit thing for you guys. I mean, the van doesn't have to leave town if somebody else could use it. I don't know what the requirements of receiving it are to the school, you know, what they have to do to it. Certainly when we get a van, we have to outfit it for ADA compliant. I don't know what they have to do at the school.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
So Mike, I can also add to that they're looking for 15 passenger vans and this wouldn't fill their need. And we did have the conversation, like Paul said, with the schools. I think these are just too small for what they're looking for.
Okay, great, thanks.
The whole thing makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds like the vans we got were proved that they weren't perfect, and I like the idea of having something with, you know, with more capacity and then something that's a little more flexible. So, and the fact that the net is so positive, I think this is a good time to change direction. And as you said, Chief, this, you know, both these things should be good for 10 years plus. So nice work.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions, comments? Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next request.
So when do we find out if these requests will be approved and on the warrant?
Typically, we vote all of the requests at the end.
Okay.
We had a little bit of a jump start last week by voting a fire truck, and it immediately created a problem when we got to police. So I think I'd like to err on the side of caution until we see the entire picture, so that we can make sure that the things that need to get funded get funded. it's not a comment on this request. This makes imminent sense to me, and I think
Yeah.
you're hearing from other committee members as well.
So you think by mid-April we would know?
I'm just thinking about the timeline itself.
So we're going to take possession of the large state vehicle, wheelchair vehicle, right? So when that comes in a couple of weeks, then it's going to go back out for some retrofit, and then it'll go over to probably Hassan's for a sticker. And then we'll get it back. So let's say that is probably the week of the 22nd or 26th. We'll have that vehicle now in fleet. That allows us flexibility because we'll still have the old one. We won't disposition that one yet.
Okay.
So we want to sell that other van for 40,000, but we can't do that until we have this vehicle on site.
No matter what we do tonight, is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if your decision is until the end of April and it's favorable, that's great. We can move forward and sell that van. We couldn't move forward and sell that van until that new vehicle is on site.
Regardless.
So I think we're looking at the end of April by the time it gets here and gets through the process.
I think that largely aligns with when we need to finalize our appropriations anyway, Paul, plus or minus a week. And if, and I guess what I'd suggest is that, give us a heads up when you get more visibility on the timing. And if we need to, move the vote on this forward, we can probably do that. I think we'll probably be far enough into our process that, we could deal with a special situation.
Perfect.
I'm just, honestly, I don't even have a problem voting this request tonight, except for the fact that we're going to create a precedent where every department then wants to come in and have us vote their requests as we hear them.
Divide and conquer seems to work in other areas.
Well, then there's going to be a scramble to get to the front of the line, right?
Yeah.
It really creates some complicated problems. So it's
Fair
not
enough.
a comment on this request. This is very straightforward. And, if your timing demands an answer sooner, just let us know.
Okay. Bob, I think, does that sound fair to you, the timeline?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A little bit of history with how this operates. So yes, and I just want to say before I say goodbye, thank you for hearing this request, and it was good to see you all.
You as well. Welcome back. It's great to have you.
All righty.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Okay, so we are a solid 20 minutes behind schedule at this point. Next up is the DPW capital request. Hopefully we've got Mr. Joyce online. Or soon have Mr. Joyce online.
Yeah, they're both here.
There we go. Brian, the floor is yours. If you could just walk us through your request, that'd be great, in any order you like.
Sure. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Right.
I'm just going to do a quick PowerPoint. Picture says 1,000 words. So if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
So I don't have many slides on facilities. Nick is on with us. If you can promote him, Michelle, and you can talk. Well, actually, Michelle and Nick can talk about the facility a little bit better than. With DPW, we have an F600 truck replacing one of the existing 550s for Tree and Park. We have an RTF scale, which is the scale on the right-hand side when you're driving in, that's used for weighing vehicles and charging for C&D, and also checking our hauling weights. And then finally, a service lift that's in the garage used for maintenance. We do all our brakes and fluids and things in-house. And the facilities request for the middle high school fire alarm repair engineering. Parker Ave, which is near the boat ramp, HVAC and roof, and then level 3 charging stations. And
okay, so Brian, we've got DP on our agenda, just so that to the extent there's anyone in the public watching, we've got the DPW requests on first and then the facilities requests after that. So if I could just ask you to do them in that, the two groups in that order, that would be.
all right, so
consistent with the flow of
DPW, and let me
agenda.
just say this, I know you guys prioritize, that's in order of priority there. The F-600, the scale for the RTF, and then was the last.
Okay.
So the F-600 is a chip body truck that's replacing 2012 F-550 diesel. We're getting a gas vehicle because of late we're having a lot of issues with diesel emissions systems and the DEF fluid systems. So where it's appropriate and it's available, we're transitioning to gasoline vehicles. So this is a frontline vehicle for Tree and Park. It's primary use. It's the primary vehicle during storm cleanups. It'll take the chipper behind it, and in the wintertime, it's a plow and sander vehicle.
Okay, so it will be used as plow and sander. Have we used the old one as plow and sander? Because I looked on your capital list, it looked like we had a chip body. It didn't really say anything about plow and sander, but
yeah, it's used for plowing.
Okay, perfect. So it's got a winter use as well. That was one of my questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, like how many miles will a vehicle like this have on it? I mean, are we losing it, sort of through uniform wear and tear, or is it mostly because of just salt rot? What sort of?
I'd say, I mean, just in general, the small town, we're kind of 9 square miles.
Yeah.
We have low mileage. It's mainly kind of wear and tear on the vehicles, body rot. Even though we do store them inside and wash them frequently.
Yeah.
You can see the picture on the lower left there is the MacGyver's welding plates in there to keep the body intact, which is a pretty common thing up there. But yeah, I'd say low mileage, high wear and tear.
Yeah. Okay, and it largely looks like the rest of the truck's in great visible condition. It doesn't mean it's not worn and torn. Are we able to trade this in? Just remove the chip body, whatever, and is there value to the vehicle?
So the vehicle will be traded in. I don't have the trade-in amount on that, but yeah, all of our vehicles we either trade in or some of them have gotten to the point where it's just scrap value.
It's scrap, yeah, or surplus. Okay, right. To the extent this has value, if you could just let us know so that we can, put a note on the spreadsheet and appropriate the correct net dollar amount, that would be helpful.
For sure.
Doesn't seem much, but it adds up. Okay, but the existing one is definitely leaving the fleet, and you made that clear.
It's leaving the fleet. Yes, it's been a perennial drain on the vehicle maintenance budget with the diesel systems in there.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on this vehicle from the committee?
Just being in the industry, I agree with the idea of getting this into a gas, not a diesel, especially considering its usage. So, from the technical standpoint, I agree with the strategy.
Just a quick one. Is this the one that also has the Madigan lift on it? Is that correct?
Does it? No, it has a it's a chip body with the back opens up to relieve the trip.
Okay, so this is not the one that has a lift requirement on it.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so this is vehicle number 11 on your spreadsheet, so that will get reported.
It's vehicle 13.
The spreadsheet you sent me, the 13 is a backhoe.
Let's see if I can toggle here.
I'm pretty sure I forwarded that out to the rest of the committee.
Oh, so sorry, the truck numbers, the assigned truck numbers of this column over here.
Yeah. I'm looking at the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. And just another thing on this spreadsheet, the values that are over on the far right side, those are older values. They obviously.
Okay.
But as far as the the VINs, the trucks, and the truck number details, those are all appropriate.
Okay, and just as long as we're on the topic, it looks like line number 10, which is vehicle number 12, same vintage, right? 2012 Ford F550 diesel. Is that next to go, I assume?
The 12 truck, yes.
Yeah, okay. And one other question, line number 7, the utility, the Ford F350, the 07 diesel. For some reason, I thought we already replaced that and surplused it. Is that just still sitting around, or am I remembering it incorrectly?
The F350, I think was replaced. Yeah, I think it was replaced with a 550.
I thought we replaced that a year or two ago.
Yeah. Do some digging. Maybe I'll have an answer by the end of the presentation.
Okay. Okay, I don't have anything else on trucks. Anyone else? Okay. RTF scale.
So the RTF scale, it's a scale you see on the right-hand side as you're driving in, and it's used to establish the C&D charges on vehicles that have large construction and demolition waste. So you weigh them coming in, you weigh them going out, and you assess them at 15 cents per pound fee. And it's also used for weighing our hauling recyclable materials before we take them to a receiving facility, just to double check that the receiving facility scale is matching up kind of with what we have, getting charged appropriately.
Okay.
We haven't had any issues there, but the scale is 30 years old. It's got significant corrosion. We had it had failed last year or about a year and a half ago. It is free. It's suspended on 4 singular points that are on scales below the driving surface, and those points are supported by brackets, and one of the brackets had rusted all the way through, and the scale was resting down, so it wasn't given an appropriate weight. We did have a welder come in and was able to kind of weld on additional plates to get that support back up. So it's still currently weighing appropriately, but there's not much life left on there. There wasn't much metal. He had to go beyond the limits of kind of where the original bracket was. So it's a critical to the operation as far as, as charging and checking our weights. So we have it on the list for replacement.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
Well, just a quick one, Brian. Do you know how much do we actually collect from people who actually have to weigh their vehicles? Do we have any idea?
I can get you those numbers. I can tell you off the top of my head, because I was looking at, I know it's a very popular thing, but the boutique is actually a drain on the RTF where we have to dispose of,
sure,
kind of junk material each week, and it averages about $600 or $700 a week. It's not insignificant, at certain times of the year, but it's, at any rate, I can get you the numbers on the C&D overall, but
every couple of years you paid back this 67,000 is what we're really saying, somewhere in that order. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
ROI on that.
Yeah. Right.
But our charges are in the tens of thousands per year, Brian, for stuff coming in.
Yes, yeah, I'd say it's over 10,000.
Okay.
I wouldn't say tens of tens.
Okay.
But most of that goes out the door, right, Brian? Based on what we're billed.
Yeah, it's basically the charges are subsidizing the disposal.
Yeah, but we're certainly not collecting that money, one for one. So
it's not net.
I see this more as an operations, not an ROI thing.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the
Right.
next.
And then finally, the DPW service list. This was original with the building. The unit's over 25 years old, and parts and pieces are obsolete and hard to find. It is functioning, but it's used for vehicle maintenance. We do all our brakes, fluids, oils, change staff in-house. They use it to lift heavy items. They used it to weld on the bottom of one of the roll-off containers where a rack had broken off. They use it for grates and things that they do welding overhead or something like that. So again, this is of the three items, this is lower on the priority, but it is something that we need to address somewhat near term.
Brian, was there what was the trigger for this coming onto the request list? Was there, just a failure? Was there a safety concern? I mean, something caused it to come up on the list, other than just looking around the shop and saying, "Oh, it's 25 years old," right?
Yeah, no, and I mean, as you know, you've been on the, we try to get items on the list, and they're usually discussed a couple of years before funded. This had its hydraulic components break on it. The guys were able to fix it, but the parts were not manufacturer parts. They were kind of MacGyvered, for lack of a better word, to fit. So it is a critical piece of equipment where, if we had to send all our brakes and fluids, and anytime you need to crawl under a truck, putting it on the lift is safer, and it's significantly more easy.
Okay. We've
So that's
other questions or comments on this one?
On the automotive side, yeah, having a lift that's over 25 years old, you're at the tail end of that service life. So, this is something I'd rather do sooner rather than later, because there's real consequences to it going wrong.
Yep. Including people underneath whatever's on the lift.
Yeah, that was more one I thought.
Any other thoughts, questions?
Just confirm, Brian, you said that the order that you presented is the order of priority?
That's correct. Yeah, the truck, the scale, and then the lift.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything
do
else.
have I have one question. As long
Please.
as we've gone through all the DPW stuff, just curious on what the year-over-year difference is in the DPW request, and it's just curiosity to see if we're more or less spending the same each year. That this is all part of the cost of running a good DPW department.
I don't have that number on the top. I can tell you that this year is lighter than most. It depends on, we had some vehicles that have been up for, the front end loader, for instance, was.
That's right. Yeah.
A couple of $100,000. That'll dwarf all three of these together, right, on one piece of equipment. So we don't have any big tickets like that in the near future. You guys funded the salt shed.
Mhm.
Had you not, we would have had biblical winters, but we've had the two mildest winters on record.
Money
Winter
well
is coming
spent.
at some point.
Great
You're
investment
welcome.
in the sidewalk snowplow too, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
seem-
right. But yeah, I mean, we're good with the loaders. We're good with the kind of the big ticket items. We have the bucket truck. It's out. The guys are using it on a daily basis. So, right now it's just kind of the standard 550 vehicle replacements going through the list.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
just, Brian, I'm just glancing at the list going forward, and we've got a couple of older vehicles on here, but a lot of it's been refreshed. In terms of the trucks, we get a 99, we get a 96 and 99. $2012. Okay, so we've got a few more that are going to be coming to us at some point. All right, anything else for DPW?
No, that's it. So I'll stop sharing and then I guess we can discuss with along with Michelle and Nick.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Mr. Berardi, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Let's do a time check. So it's 7:30 and you were on for 7:20. So we're not too far behind.
Awesome. Michelle, did you want to talk about Parker Ave first or at the end? Just because I think you have all the info on that.
So I can just highlight the two requests for Parker Ave, 40 Parker Ave. That is the CSCR building. We had an assessment report done of that building that highlighted a 10-year, 20-year maintenance plan program for that building. Since we've received that, we've seen some failures in the roof that Nick's team was able to repair in-house. However, we do need a full replacement of that roof. We did receive a quote for about $40,000 to replace the roof at that building. That is really imminent because there's some damage being done to the interior of the building due to the roof failure. The other item also is for CSCR, and what that is to lift the heating system out of the crawl space in the basement and elevate it to a ground floor level because of the flooding and the deterioration of the system. We do have a quote for that as well. So that's been uploaded. So those are two requests that have been highlighted on a building assessment report that were deemed to be imminent requests.
I've got two questions. So first, on the roof, did we receive, were we able to receive multiple bids on that? Are people actually out there actively bidding, or did we just get one proposal?
So we asked for a quote. We didn't go out to bid on that roof.
Got it. Okay.
And if the price tag is going to remain under that $40,000 or under the $50,000, we can stick with our three quotes and see if someone else can give it to us at a lesser price.
Okay, so you've got one quote. You'd need to get two more. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And then my second question was heating. What kind of system is this? Is this a Nick, is this something you picked out? Is this something CSCR picked out? What is it? Who picked it? Is it the right system?
I do not know what was spec'd for the new one. I've seen the old one once. I did kind of a brief tour of that building.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what, I'm assuming they're kind of keeping it very simple with what's there. I think it's a gas fired.
Yeah, I mean, so the other one is an older unit. It's in the basement of that building, which is, is in the floodplain, so it's very moist down there. And the building it's a residence basically. Wasn't built as a municipal building, so it's the size of a house. And I think if you think it along those lines, it'd be like a house roof replacement and if you were doing new heat in your house, probably a couple of mini splits on high ground or on the roof.
Yeah, it's all like residential grade type stuff.
That's really what I'm asking. I mean, it's 18,000 in here right, which is basically less than the cost of the mini split that you put up at the DPW. So I'm just trying to figure out what this is. It doesn't strike me as a whole system.
I would assume it's just enough to get by, and again, residential grade, which is a massive difference. So
it's significantly less square footage.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
I have some history on that building and its renovation, which was probably in around 2003-04, maybe. I want to say. The heating system is a gas heat, and I believe it's zoned. The air conditioning is a disaster from the get-go. There are external units that do suffer seawater flooding on the super tides. So they have been out of commission for almost as long as the building has been open. And those are electric, obviously. So I have noticed just anecdotally, several more super high tides this year alone, where the water has come up to the foundation of the building. So getting those systems onto the first floor, I think, is essential, just from where I sit and what I can see.
That makes perfect sense to move it out of the flood zone, right? Up to higher elevation. Ironically, people are putting these things in their attics now because it's the least valuable space. Right along the low-lying waterfront. So Michael, that background's helpful, but does anyone really know exactly what this is? Like, it just strikes me as a very small number for a comprehensive replacement of an HVAC system, and I'm just really curious, like, what exactly is it? Who spec'd it? Like, is this real, or is this going to be 50?
I'm going to share my
screen.
I'm going to share my screen and show you exactly what was quoted.
Okay. And who got the quote?
So Jack Buckley was getting the quotes.
Okay, so it's a new gas-fired boiler.
Yeah.
On the first floor. And a 2-ton coil unit.
This is forced hot air. Yeah, forced air.
And who's the vendor? Okay.
And once again, because the nature of this quote and the price tag, we would be able to award this to this vendor at this price.
So, Corey, you said it's forced hot air. So
yeah, it's the forced air system. Yeah.
So everything is already in the building in terms of getting the air moved around. You're saying you're just changing the engine on the system, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The furnace, it's pushing. The furnace pushes the hot air. The coil unit pushes the cold air, but all the ducting is in there.
Yeah, it's already
exactly. Yeah, a couple new grills, but it looks like the ducting is all staying the same. So
Corey, you're seeing something that's cluing you into the fact that this is forced air. I'm not seeing it. That doesn't mean it's not there.
If it says gas furnace, air boiler.
This is furnace.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, Nick. I wanted to be the smart one.
And I can also tell you, just from personal use of the building, it's forced hot air.
It is forced hot air. So there's not like baseboards, for example.
No, not at all.
Which can also have a gas-fired furnace.
No, it's forced hot air.
And Nick, the gas lines.
Gas-fired boiler then.
Oh, instead of a furnace. Okay.
Nick, so the gas line comes into the basement level?
I just don't know a massive amount about that building. I've only been in there to kind of help out over there for a few things. So I kind of forget where the meter is on that building.
It says run it from the lower level. I'm just asking because in the assessment report, it talks about shoring up the structure generally. Which I know isn't on the docket for right now, but it's clearly something that's going to have to be done in the future.
How's that again, Susan?
I'm looking at the critical needs assessment report for the sort of the whole building, which is what Michelle was talking about at the very beginning. And it talks about, site improvements, structure improvements, building envelope, et cetera, building systems. And there is on here work to be done to shore up the building itself. So I was wondering why the gas line would come into the lower level if we're going to be down there doing stuff. It's pretty easy to move it, but it's just
it looks like it says from lower level, so it's in there already. Is that what
you're in the lower level? Just bringing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but on that point, it looks like it's down on the first floor. Nick, is there already a space for this, or do we have to build, a obviously sound deadening little box for it? What's the
So we
So the
said.
Sorry, you
way
don't
I
know too much about
understand it.
ours.
Yeah, so sorry, Nick.
Yeah.
So the way I understand it is they have already cited a location for this. It won't need
All
any
right, cool.
additional carpentry or anything like that,
Cool.
so.
So this is an all-in. It doesn't require a bunch of carpentry. Okay. And Nick, in terms of the
It does-
system
it
that
doesn't.
you see in front of you, does this all make sense? I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, this is the cheapest, kind of easiest way to get this done for sure.
Okay.
So, and in my personal opinion, these gas-fired units are just much more easy to deal with and low repair costs and all that fun stuff. So,
All right. So, we're not the experts on this. CSCR are not the experts on it. I just wanted to hear from the experts. So that's comforting. I guess the only other question I have on this is I think that, well, I'm certain this is the first time, at least, in the past 15 years, we've seen a request from CSCR. I know they approached CPC. I'm not really sure at some point. And I was under the impression that may be a historic building. Maybe it's not. The only question, separating aside the validity of the request, which is pretty obvious, is the funding source. Does it come out of capital? Does it come out of CPC? Does anyone know sort of the background on this?
So I
In
do
the
know,
past,
oh, sorry.
just in the past, and this is now 20 years, so my memory may not be so good on this. It was CPC money that, and perhaps some town money that transferred that building, 40 Parker Avenue. I shouldn't say transfer. It's a lease. It's a town building. It's not CSCR's
Right.
facility
Yep.
that they own. So, best of my knowledge, it was some CPC money and some town money that renovated and saved that building and allowed, it originally was supposed to be a lobster lab, and then CSCR took over for the lobster lab and began its programs there.
I've got a hard answer, unless Michelle, you want to have the hard answer.
Tell you, Corey, go ahead.
Okay. So Jack Buckley, a while ago, said that unfortunately 40 Parker Avenue is ineligible for CPC funding under historic preservation due to its absence on the State Register of Historic Places.
Okay.
There's a whole process we can go through to try to avoid that, but
No, it's interesting. I didn't really realize that was a threshold issue. Or all of the other historic buildings that we throw money at on that register. I'd never really made that connection before. Okay.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah. There's a way we can get it if it's deemed locally significant by a local historical commission, then we can kind of go through a process. So there's a, but
it's a process.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So we could go through that process,
and
but
it's a process just to move it over to another bucket. Okay.
Michelle, did I get that right?
And I assume it wouldn't fall under any of the other buckets of CPC.
Sorry, yes, you did get it right. And yes, we did go before the historical commission to have them weigh in on the historical significance of the building.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think they did vote it as a local historic building. However, that's not going to change the National Register, but they are eligible for some CPC funding. If my memory serves correct, but I will have to look back at my notes.
And I know CPC, put hundreds of thousands of dollars into the sailing center next door. That's obviously not historic. Was that rec? And can this go in the rec?
It must have been
bucket?
recreation. Yeah. And could this go in the recreation bucket? Is that the question?
Yeah. Or some other bucket of CPC.
I'm not sure.
Okay. It'd have to be zoned for recreation. We have the same problem.
Okay. Michelle, what's the best way to track down whether or not, this would be appropriate for CPC under historical?
Yeah, so I'll track that down and I'll get an answer tomorrow.
Okay. I don't think there's any debate it needs funded. At least I'm not hearing any. So it's just a question of trying to, get this list to fit in the dollar number at the bottom, which it doesn't currently. So I didn't have any other questions on this. Others? Thoughts, questions? Okay, let's move on.
I figured we'd pop into the charging stations quick. So we did start talking to one of our energy consultants, and we started looking into putting level 3 charging stations in. So I kind of started helping out with this, and the 45,000 is to cover 3 sites. The rough estimate, now this is just rough stuff because there's still some more work to do with National Grid and in the details, but it would cost the town roughly $15,000 per site, and all the rest would be covered under this program, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for level 3 charging stations. So significant savings on that end. And they're looking at, I forget how many we ended up with, Michelle, but I think they ended up we're looking at 5 sites, knowing that we're only going to be approved for 2 or 3. But just based on, we won't know if each site is viable for a level 3 charging station until they do their audits with National Grid. So we figured throw out a bunch of sites and then we'll see which ones work and pick from there.
Okay. And would these replace our existing chargers, or would this just be additional chargers?
These would be additional at different locations.
Okay. And I truly apologize to anyone who knows the answer to this question already. But what does level 3 charging mean? Is it just bigger, faster?
Yeah.
Speedier charging? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Way faster level of magnitude of, what are these, 50 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 150s? What are they?
I don't actually know the exact specs of these. Off the top.
We're a factor of 5 to 10 faster.
Yeah, it's significant.
The one question I have with these, Nick, is I think we struggle with as a level 2s was ongoing maintenance, because when they break, I know we've had bills for repair of the charge points that exceeded really what they were useful to us for.
Yeah.
Thoughts about that in this case? Because again, these being another level, it's not as easy to fix as a level 2 charger.
Yeah, so. I know for sure that they're all done with ChargePoint. That's not happening. That nobody is happy with ChargePoint. They're kind of notorious at this point. So they're a different. They will be a different brand who apparently has much better response and warranty stuff with theirs. So and again, we're in the preliminary stages with this. I don't even think National Grid has responded quite yet to them on getting down to the sites to look at.
Okay,
I have a
that's
question
my
or two.
primary concern is on the maintenance. Like when one of these breaks, I don't want it to be knocked offline or to be looking at a $20,000 repair bill.
No, exactly. I think making sure there's pretty stiff warranties with these will be,
or service plans or anything like that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the revenue model would be. I don't know if you know more about that part of it, Michelle.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to that. So since we started charging people who use the level 2 charging stations that we have around town, I think every month we're averaging about $1,000 a month in revenues from those charging stations, which is great because, based on the prior agreement with National Grid, we did have to allow them free of charge for a certain period of time. So we're starting to recoup some of that funding now. As far as the level 3 charging stations, we're going to be able to charge twice as much just because it's twice as fast. And people really will gravitate towards those. So I think as long as we set the model up properly, it will take care of our capital costs in the event that there are any in the future.
So Michelle, we obviously have to pay for the electricity that's, that's being provided. Are we charging a price to the users in excess of our cost of electricity? Or is it just so this actually a net, there's actually a gross margin that's then available to cover for some of the capital costs?
Yes.
Okay. Selling things above cost is always good. Preferable impact.
I have some questions.
Please.
Can we figure out what the demand is and project demand in that I'm reading that electric vehicle use is declining, and the automakers are scaling back their electric vehicles to sell and going back to hydrocarbon, the internal combustion. I guess 3 is not a big enough number to even worry about, but still I would want to look to the future to see if these are worth doing. If we're making money on them, obviously they are worth doing, but still my curiosity is piqued on what the demand actually is or is projected to be. Any thoughts there?
So, Mike, read that a little more carefully. A lot of the reports are actually, the reporting is a little bit not fully accurate. So the sales as a growth percentage have slowed down, but I think like April was still a record setting for number of units moved. So EVs are still selling. The projected growth is not as high. It's not like the EV market has crashed. I mean, the sales points have gone down because people overproduced, but it's not like the number of EVs on the road, the number of registrations is still growing quite quickly, just not as quickly as a percentage as before. The other thing, if we want some data, Hingham just launched 3 or 4 of these. We could just send an email to them, say, hey, what's up? What's the take rate on these things? I think they launched about 6 months ago. They probably have some data on the take rate. And again, we're adjacent communities with similar, demographic and electric vehicle usage. So that could be a good data point.
Okay.
So Corey, you're saying that they're still growing, just the growth rate's flattening. So the
Yes,
revenue,
exactly. Yeah.
So the unit number is going up, but it's just not going up as fast. The growth rate number is coming down, but it's still positive. Okay.
Yeah, it's still significantly positive, but it's not 50%. I mean, it's just not possible, right? The math doesn't work anyway. But it has slowed down faster than people expect. But I think Ford was projecting 300,000 Lightnings, and now they're projecting like $125 or something. When last year they sold 80,000. I mean, I'm just making
it's still up.
It's around that
okay,
range.
Got it.
Correct. Yeah.
It's up in a disappointing way somehow. Okay.
It's news, right?
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on chargers? Let's move on.
All right. The middle high school fire alarm system. So this was kind of the big ticket top of the list for the schools. So to get things kicked off with that, we obviously need to bring in a fire alarm engineering service to outline what we have, what we need, whether we can reuse the lines in a building, and that will give us a plan to then go out to bid / an idea of what we need to ask for when we go for the actual replacement cost. So there's a lot of moving parts with this project. It's not going to be a simple one, but based on some of our site walks with the engineer, there is some hope that we can reuse a lot of the wire already run through the building. That would be huge, massive cost savings. So, but until they start digging in, obviously we won't know that. And then there is also another side issue of, if we do reuse the wire in the building, that means the project will have to take place where the building will be unprotected for the entirety of the project, because they're going to have to run or they're going to have to replace the system, taking the old stuff out. So there's something to be said for running everything in parallel while the old system is still operational. And then it's an extra cost, but it's already going to be a pretty much a summer that the building is offline. So it's not small. But again, these engineering services will tell us pretty much everything we need to know at that point. And we can make a decision based off of that.
Is that on this list and I'm just not seeing it? What line is it?
It's the very.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Very
So
top one.
yeah, number 2.
Again. So.
Oh yeah, look at that. Sorry, I scrolled down to schools. My apologies. Thank you.
So Nick, what do we have any concept of what the total project cost is going to be? This is 175 just for the upfront engineering.
Yeah. So probably $1 million or a little bit more. This particular engineer is doing an extremely similar project at, I think, Nauset High School, he said, and that square footage was a decent chunk less than us, and they were at 800,000. So he gave us kind of a rough cost per square foot, and that brought us over $1 million. That could change drastically depending on what we get to reuse and not. And again, we'll know more once we have everything planned out.
Okay, so I'm just going to flag a comment and then get back to a question. The comment, just for the benefit of the committee, when we were looking at this overall request list and we were looking at the school stabilization fund column and realizing that there doesn't appear to be, a plan to set aside enough money for the roof. We're now hearing that there's, another $800,000 worth of alarm costs coming, probably the year after that we do this $175,000 study. So this doesn't appear that there's capacity being set aside for that either. So I just want to flag what I'm seeing in real time to the other members of the committee. And the question I have, Nick, is my memory may not be accurate on this, but I have a mental number kicking in my head of $500,000 for the alarm system. I think that probably came out of the AI3 report.
Yep.
Number may or may not be, my memory may or may not be accurate. It sounds like this has moved pretty materially.
Your memory is accurate. That was just, unfortunately, that was kind of that COVID, pre-COVID pricing points, and every single thing that we've done so far after that has been astronomical comparatively to the past. So that might have been AI3's kind of.
I'm trying to remember if AI3 was pre-COVID, post-COVID, or pre-COVID or mid-COVID. It was only.
Yeah, it was in that. Yeah, it was in that realm where costs were just.
We're going up.
Yeah, they were just all over the place. There was no settling in any industry. So
bottom line is their numbers were off by half.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you? I know you're talking to someone who just did Nauset. Are there other people that we can talk to just to make sure that the scope is not being
Yeah, I've talked to like
Increase.
our fire alarm company,
Yeah.
and he agreed with the assessment for cost of square foot type thing. So he was like, that's what you should expect, especially going out to bid all the prevailing wage. That's where we're looking. And it's a massive project, and there's a lot of there's a lot of additional stuff that's going to be needed. It's not replace a horn strobe with a horn strobe. We're going to have to add them every X amount of feet, because what we have in the building, not to say it doesn't meet code, but it doesn't meet the new code that will be required when we do the project. So, you know, there's more going into the building than just piece by piece.
Than just piecemeal replacement.
Yeah.
Which I think is what we were contemplating earlier, which is we could reuse a lot, supplement it, replace some things. Okay.
Nick, if we did the parallel system, would that still be a summer project, or is this something we could phase over multiple years?
Oh, yeah, it needs to be done all in one fell swoop. Still a summer project, but the building could be occupiable. So we could, you know, we wouldn't have to shut it down and not have unauthorized people in there. And we wouldn't, you know, need fire watches and all that good stuff that comes with it. And that's a whole nother hurdle that I put it out there gently to the schools, but I know it's daunting and it's not something that people want to hear, but unfortunate.
But it's also priority one. I mean, there is no option B to not do it, right? I mean, a lot of the things.
Yeah, and frankly, option C is the system has a catastrophic failure and we have to emergency replace it in the school shutdown. So we do not want to get there. That's not where we need to be.
Do you have any instinct towards, you know, sort of talking to a second vendor, or even on
the engineering services?
Any of it, yeah.
I mean, the engineering services, this guy came extreme. Like I asked around to a lot of the contacts. I even put it out to my facilities association group that I'm a member of, and this guy has like stellar. He designs great systems, and he designs systems that use alarm vendors that are non-proprietary, which will help us in the long run. We kind of got handcuffed at Osgood back in the day, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that system, it just went out low bid, and we got a system that only one vendor in the area can work on, and not helpful. So we need to make sure that we get a system that is open, easy to deal with, multiple vendors can use it. You know, if we don't like our servicing fire alarm contractor, we can move on to another one, so we don't get caught. So
got it. Okay.
The big thing will just be when it goes out to bid, making sure that the installer is up to snuff. But
Have a question?
I've dug in a lot on this particular engineering service, and it seems to be the way to go here.
Michael?
I just want to go back to the comment you made, Nick, on running new cable.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I understand what you said. Is it that we have the option of using existing cable, but that means shutting down the building while that's being done, or that that option has been looked at and discarded and saying, no, we really have to run new cable no matter what?
So we don't know for sure yet whether we can reuse the wire, and we will be able to make that choice after the engineering services are complete on which route we want to pursue. So, and he'll be able to give us an estimated, you know, how much more it would be not using the existing wire as opposed to using, and we can make a decision. You know, if it's marginally more money and it means the school can be occupiable, you know, I can't make that decision on what works best. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of input from a lot of people, including the fire department, and there'll be a lot of meetings on this, but we won't know the details yet. But we will have the choice later, for sure.
And what's the current state of the fire alarm? Is it working?
It is working. It is very much at the end of its useful life, and we have started to run into not being able to get replacement parts. And this isn't something you can just fudge to get by. This is like a motherboard going that they haven't made in 5 years, and you have major issues. So our fire alarm vendor raised the alarms. Like, we started looking into this 2 years ago, and we've been doing the legwork to get to here, and now is the time.
And the work needs to be done this summer?
No, there's no chance that would ever be able to get done, because the engineering services, we'd have to wait to have the engineering services done for this summer until after town meeting. And then the plan, or my timeline, would be, in a perfect world, do the engineering services this summer, go out to bid, see what kind of pricing we get, and then have a number that we need, and we can hopefully go at it special town meeting, and then next summer do the install.
And it really has to be done in the summer when the school is empty.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Because if we don't do that timeline, we're pushing till 3 summers from now. So.
All right, I understand. Thanks.
Okay, so you're looking at a fiscal 26. Well, no, it's not a fiscal 26. You're looking at an STM request for whatever the other 800 grand on this project. Is that roughly where this is headed?
Yeah, and to kind of clarify the school's list for the stabilization fund, and I hope I'm not speaking for them and speaking out of turn here, but based on meetings and calls, this is the #1 priority on that list. And if we do the engineering, we have our costs, and we go out and we make that request, then it would take precedent over their other requests on the stabilization fund list, if that makes sense. So I think they don't see this as a happening quite yet, because we're still in this phase of it, and they made those requests based on that. But if this starts going, this would take over, I think.
When you say this starts going, you mean the system fails?
No, like the whole process. Like, we get the engineering done, and we're on our timeline, and we are able to get an accurate cost that we need to request.
I see.
Yeah.
If this procurement process gets going.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is there any reason it wouldn't get going? I mean, they have the money.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Okay. It sounds like this should become the base case plan, because 175 now, and whatever you think the number is going to be at STM, I think I'm hearing it's 800.
Yeah, I hope it is. That'd be fantastic if it was 800.
You think it could be higher?
Yes. But again, after we just can't say for sure until they've done a full go through of this building. So
I guess what I'm trying to sort through in my head real time, and I'm sure other members of the committee are too, is how much, financial capacity do we need to maintain in this, or dry powder, for lack of better terms, in the school stabilization fund, to cover this request in the fall, assuming it's coming in the fall, right?
Yep.
And so what's a conservative, in other words, what's the high end of what it could be? Because that's, you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? Not the other way around.
Yep. High end, probably like 1.2.
Okay. All right. I mean, we need to think about that seriously, because it sounds like that, I mean, that, as we sit here today, that could be the request at STM. Okay. All right. We have other questions on the,
Yes,
Please.
and Nick, this question is not intended to be provocative, but we had an earlier discussion about projecting the cost of the school roofs and the missing information on the school capital request for the roofs. And in hearing that the fire alarms could be somewhere around 1.2 million, my question is, do you have a sense for what the school roofs are going to require over what time frame?
Yeah, so I can definitely clarify a little bit of that. So the roofs do not qualify for MSBA accelerated until they're 25 years old. So Osgood has just hit that. That's why we made the accelerated request this year. And in my opinion, we wouldn't do a roof unless we had a little bit of assistance from an accelerated repair program. It doesn't make sense to leave money on the table. So we entered that. From my understanding, the accelerated repair is not like the SOI for like a new school where you get accepted or denied. You get accepted and then put onto a list. So you're always in a list, and eventually you do get that help in the accelerated repair program. That's my understanding of it. So that being said, we entered it this year. Like Michelle said, it's a long process. Even once you get accepted, they send out their own study people, and you come up with the plan, and then it has to, it's just one of those annoying red tape projects. So the schools told me that they were going to earmark, 200,000, and then maybe even more for the next cycle. And that was our thought, was this was a long-term plan for roofs. So Deer Hill, that's not even going to be 25 years for another 2 years. So it kind of works. The other issue is that this accelerated repair program is only open every other year. So we're not applying it next year. So the cycle kind of works a little bit. And the current service contract that we do for our roofs has really allowed us to push these a little longer in order to get the funding. So I know there was a lot of trepidation about only $200,000, but I have had these discussions, and it's a long-term view to get these done as soon as we can. And unfortunately, we are kind of at the whim of the accelerated program too. If we get pushed to the top of the list and they say, let's get started now, that's great. But maybe it's the pessimist in me. I just don't see that happening. And then the other portion is the company that we use for our roofing. They do a restoration, which we've done on 2 of our roofs now. So it's the same process where they do the coating. You get the same exact 20-year warranty that you would on a new roof anyway, at much less the cost. So that 3 to 4 million is the estimate to replace the roof in kind, meaning ripping up all the insulation, all the existing rubber, and doing that again. That is significantly more money than doing the restoration coating. So the way we're looking at it is, if this project gets approved, we would be pushing for the restoration process, which, come to find out, the MSBA is kind of hot to trot on. They love this because they're saving money doing these too. They're actually doing all or close to all of Marshfield school roofs with that restoration process. So it's the way to go, and that might actually get us bumped higher in the list because we want that. And now we know that it, like on the library roof, that one's done, the police roof, we love it. It's like, you can tell it's going to be a better system in the long run. There's no seams on the roof anymore, so less leak points, and you get the same warranty. So and it's much less cost. So estimated under 2 million for Osgood if we go that route. So that helps.
Restoration, under 2 million restoration.
Yeah. And that
Versus,
includes doing the shingle portion of Osgood as well, too. So not with the restoration, obviously that would be just shingle replacement, but if we do the restoration on the rubber membrane, significant savings.
so I'm trying to understand, Nick, some of the numbers I've heard put out there to take care of the school roofs. Can you tell me, let's assume that it's restoration rather than replacement, and understanding that it's a 20-year solution versus 40, but where would we land in terms of cost? Rough, we're never asking you for anything specific, but just to give us an idea of a comparison between how much would it take to follow through with a request to replace school roofs versus restore school roofs.
So just using Osgood as the example.
Yeah.
So 3 to 4 million to replace. If we do shingle replacement restoration, under 2, give or take.
Okay. And
so it's not half the cost, it's probably, 2/3 the cost, maybe even a little less than that. That's what we saw, at least for the library project. So
okay. So the request that has gone into the MSBA for MSBA, I'll use the term construction funds, right? We're waiting to hear back.
Yeah, so the accelerated repair program,
not the accelerated repair program, the first program that we started with a year and a half ago, where we were declined and we reapplied.
are you talking about the middle high school replacement statement of interest?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes.
So that's a totally separate.
But would that be the roof also? I assume so. Would that be the roof on the middle high school? Yeah. I'm muddying the waters, and maybe I should just stop.
So asking for a new school is a request made to the MSBA. That's like, well, either a school renovation or tear it down, build all new. That's they're accepted, denied. You have to apply every year if you're denied.
Right, but a roof would be included in that kind of a project, right?
Oh yeah. That is like everything. That's
okay. So that's why you're starting with Osgood. I won't say that's
well,
why, but it makes sense to start with Osgood and then perhaps go to Deer Hill and leave the middle school, high school for the last of the list. Okay, that's really what I was trying to clarify.
And the ages dictate it. So Osgood's 1997, 1998. Deer Hills is 2001, 2002-ish. High school's the same because those were done at the same time. But yes, that is the thought process. Is high school is definitely last, and high school is also the only school that qualifies for the potential for solar, which would help immensely for a new roof over there at that time if they're not getting a new school. But that's a whole different.
I follow. All right, great, thanks. That helps.
Yep.
Nick, you made it clear that you view this Osgood roof as a long-term gambit. Can you, we were trying to sort of, again, plan for the the worst. In this case, the worst from a capital planning perspective is the soonest, which from a different lens is the best, right?
Yeah.
But the worst case scenario is we have to cough up, a big chunk of this 2 million, in the fastest possible time frame. What is that time frame? We're applying now. I assume we'd hear back, later this year.
I think Michelle said what, like September? Is that what she said?
So Michelle's reconnecting to audio, but assuming we hear back later this year, is this something where the study and the bidding gets done and it comes back as a fiscal 26 request?
I would find that highly unlikely.
I just don't know how fast the MSBA moves. I can't imagine why it would take years and years to price, to price and bid a roof, but.
Well, so when you go through the accelerator program, from my understanding, and we've never done it in town, so this is new to a lot of people. They kind of dictate a lot of what you do, so you don't have the freedom that you would have on other projects, I don't think. So because of that, they move slow. I also think that this is kind of the reason why that they're on the every other year model right now too, apart from financial reasons. So I feel like they move pretty slow.
I get all that, but I'm trying to put a number on it. Like, what year do we actually have to have the financial capacity to fund 60% of this project?
I would think the hope would be
scenario.
The hope for me would be next cycle. So
right, not this cycle, but next cycle.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is fiscal 26. So this time next year, we'd be talking about.
Yeah. Absolute perfect best case scenario, that'd be great.
Because you'll know by then, right? You'll have heard back in the fall whether or not you're on the list, and based on where you are on the list, you can probably get a decent idea as to when they're going to get.
Oh yeah. I'm sure once you're approved, we'll learn a lot more about the processes going forward.
Okay, but you
just a touch too, just because I know you guys mentioned the windows, so windows don't even qualify for this accelerator program until year 30 now. So that's even that much further out.
How did the Osgood skylights play into this? Because I assume they qualify as their windows, which means...
So that's a sticking point at the moment. I think I'm gonna most likely, since there's not too many of them and they're not that expensive, I think we're going to try to get those replaced just as we go, in hopes that they're done before the roof gets put on, and we'll just pick away at those, get those done, and then we'll be fine.
Will you pick away
as
or
far
just
as the
replace
leaking
them all as a
standpoint.
group?
What was that?
Will you pick away as they fail, or will you just replace the whole group? Go just right down the road?
Probably pick away as we fail. They're really, in the grand scheme of things, they're pretty short money, and I think we can get them all done just doing it like that instead of, because if we do a huge window project without using the accelerated funding,
I guess what I'm just trying to solve for is if you want them done prior to the roof project, and the roof project could be a capital request next year, should we be looking at skylights now, or skylights like next year, and you just execute it as the first phase of that project? Like when?
We could batch it in, just since it does directly tie into leaking, which is kind of the issue up there anyway. We could look at doing it that way.
I guess the answer on the roof is going to drive the drop dead on replacing the skylights, because you got to do that first.
But I'll start doing all the digging in just to see what an overall cost would be as one project, and just to have the information. So
I'm just thinking through the sequencing. We got to make sure we've got landing slots, right?
There's certainly a lot coming, and I think hearing all the numbers, Brian, you said earlier, this is what this fund is for, because otherwise we would have had a chance in whatever word you want to use, to getting any of this stuff done. And, you know, my first priority as somebody with kids in the school system is that, you know, these things are available to be funded in the quickest way possible. I don't want funding to be the holdup on safety or on roofs or on anything that could literally cost us a lot more money in the future. So as these discussions go on, I'm certainly going to be very sensitive to us spending money on things that puts that target farther away. Just initial feedback.
Yeah, I mean, look, voters signed up to spend, you know, a lot of money on the schools, right? And I think we need to make sure that those funds cover the things that people would expect to be the priorities. Things like roofs. Because if the roof comes due, we collectively have spent the money on a bunch of other stuff that's not as important, and we have to go back to the taxpayers, they're going to be furious.
My thoughts exactly. I would be furious as well.
It's not even an issue of vote math. It'll absolutely divide the town. All right. I don't have anything else on this. Anyone else?
Super helpful though. A lot of good information. Yeah.
All right. Nick, I know there's a whole bunch of other, facilities items that are going to come up with regards to the schools. They weren't really contemplated for tonight. So I don't really intend to, drag you through that. Is it best that you come back when we go through school facilities? Is that school stabilization items?
Yeah, I can, if you want to touch on some of those. I don't know.
I'm just glancing at this. Let me make a suggestion. Okay. Most of this is like sidewalks. There are two items on here, which are the retiling the classrooms at Deer Hill.
Yep.
And then the Osgood generator. Do we want to take a minute on these tonight? Capital budget team?
I can talk real quick. Yeah. If is Brian still here?
So,
Brian-
sorry, Nick, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to add one thing. As far as the Osgood generator, I don't believe the selectmen are voting to move that forward. They haven't
Okay.
taken a formal vote yet, but all discussions are leading towards that kind of going down to the B column versus the A. So.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me just ask one question on this issue. This isn't the first time we've seen this on a list. We once heard a justification that they needed it in order to keep the freezer and food protection, and it turns out you could do that with a portable generator, not a $250,000 whole building unit. So
Yeah.
that's why it came off the list the last time. Is there a new justification for this, or is this just they'd like to keep the building running when the power goes out?
The latter.
This doesn't even keep the building running. Like you'd still have to have students out of the building, right? It doesn't, it
Yeah,
wouldn't, it wouldn't allow us to continue school. We'd still
Yeah,
end the school.
that's the whole thing. I think generators in general have gotten kind of a luxury rap lately, where
Yeah.
oh, we have a generator, we can still run the building, but in the real world, they do not run the entire building. They run all these systems we need to have running, and then partial power for a lot of the area. And thinking that it's business as usual is kind of the
And
wrong
it's not.
mindset. So
Well, and Osgood, we'd had the power outage this time, and my son, that was the best day he's ever had in school, was the power
That's-
outage day.
I-
Everyone thought it was great. The teachers thought it was great. Everyone had a blast.
I was in the building, and
Skylights.
it was like they were all like camping out. They were having a
Yeah,
great
so I
time.
kind of also don't want to deny future generations that experience.
There you go.
So-
Everyone should enjoy camping. Lots of natural light, given those skylights and picture
yeah.
windows. Okay, so it sounds like that's going to come off the list. I just want to know if there was any background that we were missing on that. And on the tiles, Deer Hill,
Yeah, that's just the continuation of the project. Kind of.
is it the final continuation of the project?
This is it.
This is
This
the
is it.
gift that
And-
seems to never stop giving.
Yeah, well, and I know we had discussions. We were initially phasing it a little bit, but then we decided let's not do that. And then this is all of the rest that is not done. And our pricing has remained the same because they've been very kind to us. So,
Is it your sense that we're going to lose that pricing? That they're
yeah, if we don't do it this year, it's going to go up 100%. Yeah, but this would finish that school, so they would be stripper and wax free going forward.
okay? So it's not that like these tiles are like a danger. It's just this is the final stage of the project.
Yeah, and they're starting to put what we call potato chip and crack in a way that is not ideal for sure. And every time over the summer that you strip and wax them, they get exponentially worse. So it's definitely time. They've met their life.
So that's a different tone than past conversations where you have indicated that it's not necessarily time yet.
Yeah, like
clearly now it's time.
Yeah, before was getting ahead of what we saw coming. / there was that one hallway that did have that weird issue happening. And now we're starting to creep into we should probably get this done soon.
Okay, and this is the last of it, and you're comfortable this number's real? Because I think
I actually talked to him recently, and he was like, "Yep, that's it." So
okay, so that would get us to the finish line on that.
Yep.
Questions from the committee? Comments? Okay, I don't think I see anything else on here that's really a facilities item.
Yeah, and all like the paving and stuff, Brian can talk.
That's all Brian.
A lot better on that. So.
Okay. All right. Anybody else before we let Nick go? All right. Thanks for your time and your great work.
Thank you. Great to see everybody.
You as well. Okay, let's do a time check. It's 8:35. We've got liaisons and minutes left on the agenda. Should we power through? Are people okay with that? Do people need to drop? We can make short work of it, hopefully.
Let's make short work. I think that liaison appointments are important as these things are wrapping up. To Mike's point earlier, there's a lot of conversations happening that we need to be at. So.
Yeah, and we've had this on the agenda and not gotten to it now, I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row. So my instinct is let's just power through. So I just scratched together a list on a handwritten list on a sheet of paper, and we'll just bang through this and people can sign up for things. A lot of this stuff I'm not even sure it's going to really involve a role because I think we're through some of it already. But why don't we start with fire, the requests are already done for this year, but I think somebody needs to look at their 10-year plan. So we're still going to need a liaison. So let's just start with fire. Anyone?
I'm the junior member. Give me whatever you want. Other people get other stuff. So
let me do this in a different way. Are there things that people would actually want to do, right? Specifically. And maybe we'll do that, and then we can fill in the gaps. Does that make any sense? I mean, I've got fire, police, elder affairs, DPW, facilities, harbor, IT, roads and sidewalks. I've got 2 lines for schools, right? We've got non-facilities and then school facilities, which is now an entirely separate fund and a separate committee and separate everything. I think we need somebody as a liaison looking over the police station project, right? We funded it, but we don't really know, what exactly is happening up there. And I think we need someone, to coordinate on that. We need liaisons on the town hall discussions, projects, whatever it is that these become. And that includes both 41 Highland and potentially 1 Pleasant. And then harbor, I've got harbor committee. It's a harbor committee, and So those are just thinking out loud. Does anyone have any preferences as stuff that they just like to be involved with?
School facilities for me.
Your upper left corner of my screen, so I'm just going to go clockwise here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Brian. The
So I'm
last
gonna
one.
start with you. Do you have like two that you'd prefer to do? And then
Oh,
we'll-
well, just clarification, you mentioned roads and sidewalks, but that has its own fund now. Are you looking for somebody to sort of like oversee what the
still needs the
stabilization-
liaison, right? It's a, you know, call it a department for lack of better terms.
Okay,
You know, with its own committee.
I think I was on schools last year. I could continue doing that.
Okay. Do you want to do facilities or non-facilities or both?
So when you get into the facility side, that jumps over to the stabilization fund piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be a little
Mike, you're
complex.
muted.
Hmm?
Michael?
Yeah, Corey wanted to do the school facilities, and that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got, I mean,
Susan,
yeah,
if you're processing, we can come back to you. I don't,
No, so Corey, you want to do school facilities and I'll do school capital items? Or do you want
yeah.
to-
I'm not as familiar with the capital requests as the process has gone, but the facility stuff I knew from back select board. You know,
I'm pretty
know the
familiar
players.
with them because a lot of them repeat year to year. Or we've been doing them in small chunks, so why don't I do that one, Brian?
Gotcha.
okay. Is there another one you want to do as well? You're on mute, Susan.
Let's see.
If I could just ask everyone else to think about what they'd like to do while Susan's sitting on the hot seat, unfairly perhaps.
I think I've been on schools and I can't remember what other one I've been in the past, but I'm fine to do whatever.
As am I, which is why, to the extent
Yeah.
people have a preference, just please articulate it and we'll give you, you know, what you're excited about and the rest of us will backfill.
Yeah. Well, I thought last year about doing town hall, but town hall's really changing a lot. I mean, I'm happy to get involved in it, but it seems to be moving all over the place at the moment.
It is. I'm not sure what it'll be, but we're gonna need, you know, at least one person, you know, looking at it.
Okay, and put me down for that one.
Okay. Okay, Mike?
I'd also like to sit in on the town hall discussions. I would like to also cover the harbor because I've been on that and I'm following that with interest.
Okay.
And then I'll also volunteer for, unless anyone else would like to do it, on the new public safety building, since during the discussion, I voted against because I felt there wasn't sufficient detail in their plan. So it might be good to have a skeptic staying on top of their planning and budget process and seeing how that 10 million is being spent.
Okay. So we've got, okay. We've got two on town hall. Do we have a second for police? A second person would like to do police along with Mike?
I'm happy to do it if, you know, it's an interesting project to me, so.
So you're gonna do two different facilities, which actually makes a lot of sense, Corey.
Yeah, sure.
Similar, you know, similar skills and analysis.
So
Okay.
was Corey's doing fire, I'm doing police? Or
No, the police station is gonna be you and Corey. It's a $10 million construction
yeah,
project.
I
I think
think
it makes
that's
sense to have two
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
on it. It's
yeah,
a
so
it's a
Corey
big,
and I could do
important
police
project.
and fire together just as a tag team.
Okay,
Corey, does that sound right?
Sounds great. Yeah,
this is the police station specifically, right?
correct. Police station with fire annex, right?
Well,
Okay.
actually, no, it has to also encompass what happens at 60, was it 64 Elm Street, 62 Elm Street? the
Yeah, of
refit
course.
of that building.
Yeah.
So do the two of you want to cover police and fire departmental requests as well? Their 10-year plans, just handle
Yes.
it all, soup to
Yeah.
nuts?
Yeah, that all goes together.
You okay with that, Corey?
Yeah, happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Which leads me to you, Francine.
I'm like I say, I'm happy to fill in wherever. So whatever's
Okay.
open.
So fire and police are done. Town hall's done. What we've got left is elder affairs, DPW, facilities, IT, roads and sidewalks, and then some people could use partners on projects as well. So Susan, for example, has school requests. Corey has school facilities requests.
Brian, I'm happy to jump into IT too. I mean, that's just I don't know who's had that. I don't want to step on any toes, but I know wrong. I speak the language. I find it interesting. So
Okay.
And I
We're gonna need-
don't have any of these qualities or interest in IT. So thank you.
there we go.
So elder affairs, DPW, facilities, roads and sidewalks, or you can join, any of the things where we've just got one delegate right now, or one liaison.
Yeah, I'm happy to join Susan on the school requests, just because I've, like her, I'm familiar with those. They seem to happen, year after year.
Yep.
And then if you don't have anyone on DPW or facilities, I haven't worked with them before, but I'm happy to take those on.
Okay. So I've got you on school requests, non-facility requests, but
Yep.
school requests, and then DPW and facilities.
Sure.
Okay. Ralph, what are your thoughts? What would you like to do, not do? As an associate member, you can do lots or nothing, or anywhere in between. Could be we've got Ralph's icon, but not Ralph. Which, given the hour, would make logical sense. Okay, so let me jump in where there are no names currently. We've got nothing on elder affairs, so I'll take that. That's usually very light. We've got no one on roads and sidewalks. I'll take that. And then what do we need a double on? Francine, if you want help on DPW or facilities, I'm happy to help you there. Or Corey, if you want a wingman on IT.
Facilities, facilities might be helpful. DPW is, for me anyway, is more straightforward. Facilities just covers so many things.
Okay.
Or could cover so many things.
And there's some very big numbers coming along those items as well.
Right.
So
Okay.
I can join with Francine on facilities and DPW. I've had them in the past.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so that leaves me with elder affairs, roads and sidewalks. Corey, maybe I'm trying to figure out where someone else needs a lift.
Did you already put someone else in school facilities?
Susan.
No, Susan.
No, I'm sorry. No, that's you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take school facilities with you, Corey.
Yeah, and you've been plugged into that too. So from a different angle than me, actually. So that'll work well.
And those are some big numbers. So yeah, we absolutely need a double coverage on that. We got Susan and Mike double covering town hall. We got Mike on harbor committee.
What about the long range fiscal planning? Are you still doing that?
I am still doing that. There's not much happening right now, but I know they want to have a discussion about how to fund something regarding town hall, yet TBD. At some point, the numbers get big enough that they're you know, they're challenging in terms of being non-excluded debt. So, but that's really, I think, the only thing that I've heard that committee wants to discuss. And I emphasize the word discuss. I don't think there are no decisions to be made at this point.
No, but there is overview. That really, I wonder if it's really been addressed in terms of 5 and 10 year plan and the heavy expenses coming. And I don't believe anyone has brought in the government wharf project, which is several million. Now we've heard from Nick on some school needs. So I think there's a lot of capital demand certainly in the next 3 to 5 years, let alone 10, that ought to be looked at now and not just left off the list.
Yeah, I mean, if we know it's coming, it should be on the list, right? The number will change, the year will change, but it should be on the list. Your point's
Right.
spot on.
So I think you, as a chair of this committee, ought to be advocating to the select board and advisory board members the necessity for looking at these, near term and mid-term capital needs and balancing them.
It's a good suggestion. It is time to take that committee through the 10-year plan again.
Right. There's one other group that I have met with in the past, which is Water Commission.
Oh, right. The enterprise funds. We need water and sewer. You're spot on, Mike.
So I'm happy to attend the
Huge
water.
oversight.
What's that?
That's a huge oversight. We're on second, we're done. It's like the entire enterprise funds. Yeah.
It's an oversight comprised of lack of oversight. Right.
Right. It goes back to when they were dealing with the whole PFAS and activated charcoal filters and all that stuff. I think they're in good shape, or they were some months ago. But I'll reconnect with them.
Sorry, go on.
Sewer, I think, is a lot to take on with everything else I have.
Yep.
But they also have, what's that?
But you want to do water? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But sewer also has major projects coming up. The intrusion and infiltration, the I&I they call it, where seawater gets into the pipes and overwhelms our plants. And although the sense I get from the long range planning committee that water and sewer is not their problem because it is an enterprise fund, I feel
it's not until it is.
Well, it's all part of total cost of ownership as a Cohasset homeowner.
Yeah.
And has to be factored into how much are we going to be asking homeowners to pony up for all of these projects.
And look, sewer just ate a big chunk of the ARPA funds, right?
Yeah.
It's $1.5 million, something like that, for those filters, those failing filters. So
there was an option there, but yeah.
Yeah. At least we found a place to use the money. But okay, does anyone want to do sewer?
I'll take sewer.
Okay.
Unless anyone else wants it, but I talk with all the guys in sewer committee fairly regularly. So
okay, so let me read back what I've got. Okay, so we've got fire and police, Mike, including the police at both of the stations. Okay, the new project plus whatever repairs need done at the old one. We've got Mike and Corey. All right. Elder Affairs is me solo. Somebody wants to join me, that's fine, but it's a pretty light lift. DPW, we've got Francine and Mike. Facilities, we've got Francine and Mike. Harbor, we've got Mike. Actually, did I write this down? Did you want facilities, Mike?
I said I would work with Francine.
Francine, okay.
On facilities and
okay.
DPW.
Perfect. And then Harbor, we've got Mike. IT, we've got Corey. Do you want a second on IT, Corey? I'm happy to join you.
If you want to join, come, but I'm not. I mean,
okay,
it's not a daunting task from my perspective. Not to minimize it's important, but it's, yeah, I speak the
Yeah.
language, so it's pretty easy.
His numbers get big, and I don't see really any IT requests on this year's request list, which is kind of interesting. So
We
it's
spent a
doing
lot of money recently, so
Yeah.
I'll try to get a handle on what the 5-year plan is. and,
It's
you know,
really what's coming out is the 5 and 10 year plan.
Yeah.
So roads and sidewalks, I've got solo. If anyone wants to join me, they're welcome. School requests, non-facilities, we've got Susan and Francine. School facilities, we've got Corey and me. We already talked about the 3A police station. For town hall, we've got Susan and Mike. For harbor committee, we've got Mike. For water, we've got Mike, and for sewer, we've got Corey.
Right.
Right?
Suggestion, Michelle, are you still on?
Yeah.
Here's my suggestion, and that would be for a letter to come from, or an email from yourself or from Chris to the department heads or chairs for all of the committees that we are going to liaison with, and say at last night's meeting, the following liaisons have been appointed to connect with your groups. Please expect contact from the following people, and give it a little bit of weight.
You want that to come from Chris or I? Is it?
Yeah,
Well, just so
that's
they
my
know it's
suggestion.
just so they know it's coming, unless you'd prefer that we just sort of show up at the departments.
No, I'm happy to let everyone know.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, should we move on to minutes?
Do we have any?
Yes,
we forwarded 2 sets of minutes.
Yep.
Has everyone had a chance to review them? And if the answer is no, we can defer these.
No, I don't have them.
Okay. I think I forwarded them yesterday.
Yep.
Okay. Look, let's not do it on the spot. It's late.
I don't have them.
You don't have them. Okay. I will, when we get off the phone, I will forward you the minutes again.
Okay.
And we will do this at the next meeting. Last question, timing for next week. Monday, Wednesday, what's people's preference?
Wednesday's working better for me these couple of weeks.
Is that okay with everybody else?
I would prefer not Wednesday. I'm dropping it out because Wednesday is the night my wife works late, so I got the kid by myself. So I'm kind of doing bedtime, shower, and meeting at the same time, which I'm happy to do, but just,
I'm just trying to accommodate everybody. Mike,
All right, no,
okay if we do Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you sure, Mike?
Well, can we start at 6 rather than 5 or 5:30?
So we did tonight, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
That works for me.
So Monday, 6 o'clock, which means we're gonna have to post tomorrow. Post tomorrow, Michelle. We're gonna have to figure out what we're doing.
Okay.
If we cannot get a department to fill our agenda for Monday, Corey, is it okay if I bump it back to Wednesday as needed?
Yeah, do what you have to do, and I mean, I'll
Okay.
make it work. I just,
Right.
if there was a preference.
I won't be available Wednesday.
You will not be available
No,
Wednesday.
no.
Okay.
Would it make
Right.
sense to ask the schools to come and talk about their requests? Because they're the
If-
majority of the requests.
If they're ready, and they can do Monday, let's do it.
Okay.
Is that best
What
for you?
about
Sorry, go on.
meeting in person? If we're going to meet with the schools, meeting in person in that community room.
I think that's going to be difficult to do. I'm just going to be honest. I think it's difficult for them to meet in the evenings, given their schedule as well with school committee. It puts them out several nights in a row. I can certainly ask for it in person, but I'm not hopeful.
Okay.
Okay, it gets really cumbersome on Zoom when we have so many people on. Okay. Make it work, I guess.
Okay, so we'll shoot for Monday with schools, and that'll be a pretty full agenda, I would think.
Okay.
All right, everybody. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Francine. I thought maybe everyone wanted to stick around. Do we have a second?
Okay,
Great. Let's do a roll call vote. Susan Franklin,
Susan Franklin, aye.
Michael Dick,
Mike Dick, aye.
Corey Evans,
Ray Evans, aye.
sorry, I just had a thought. Francine Lyons,
Francine Lyons, aye.
Brian Host, aye. Time is 8:58 and we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.